I am Councillor Dan Pratt, Chair of Mid-Suffolk District Council, and I will be chairing the meeting today. Before the meeting commences, there will now be a minute's silence to remember our former colleagues, previous Mid-Suffolk councillors David Byrne and Peter Gould, who recently passed away. On behalf of all of us, I wanted to say how very sorry we were to hear about the recent deaths of two of our former councillors, David Byrne and Peter Gould. David was a councillor for Palgrave Ward between 2011 and 2023, serving on the Planning Committee, Development Control A Committee, Regulatory Committee, Joint Audit and Standards Committee, and Executive Committee as portfolio holder for Environment and Environmental Health. He was also Mid-Suffolk Cabinet Member for Planning until last year, playing an important role in the development of our joint local plan. David's gentle, courteous approach won him many friends across the council chamber. Peter Gould was the serving Suffolk County Councillor for Hoxton and Eye, and also Mid-Suffolk District Councillor for Eye between 2019 and 2023. During his time on council, he was Cabinet Member without portfolio until January 2020, and then became Cabinet Member for Assets and Investment. He also served on Development Control B and Planning Referrals Committees. Peter dedicated his life to local politics, including senior positions in local government across the country and as a committed public servant in Suffolk. He was well known and respected in his community and achieved a great deal for those living there, including being a staunch advocate for Hartismere Hospital. On behalf of the council, I pass on our deepest condolences to the family and friends of both men. Before we take a minute's silence, I would like to invite Vice Chair Councillor Scarf to say some words.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I too would like to pay tribute to both David and Peter and the contribution, the work that they did for this council. I found them both extremely approachable and likeable and very professional in their role as councillors, and some of the most interesting conversations we had were actually outside of the chamber. My sympathy does also go to their respective families whose loss it will be deeply felt, but also to the residents in their respective communities that they represented with such dignity and determination. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scarf. Would anybody else like to say some words? Either of the two leaders. Okay. We will now, Councillor Whitehead, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for such kind and appropriate words. I've nothing sort of prepared, but certainly they'd be sorely missed. Councillor Byrne literally did devote 12 years of his life to this council and worked so hard and diligently in his cabinet roles. You know, his contribution was immense. Peter Gould had an amazing history in terms of involvement with local government, and I always found him such a helpful and useful sounding board. In fact, even this February, I didn't realise just how ill he was. I knew he wasn't well, but I thought he was at home. When I was looking at my budget amendment proposals, I actually picked up the phone to ask for his advice, because out of everybody I could think of, I always valued his advice and his guidance more than anyone else. Unfortunately, he wasn't well enough to return the call, but I think it just shows just what, in terms of deep respect and affection I had for well, both Peter and Dave. I think it was sorely missed. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your warm words, Councillor Whitehead. We will now hold a minute's silence for both David Byrne and Peter Gould. Thank you. Now may I remind you of some domestic arrangements. Toilets are situated outside the meeting room, opposite the stairs. Water is also available in the breakout area outside the meeting room. If the fire alarm should sound, please leave the meeting room by following the fire exit signs. Do not re-enter the building unless you are told it is safe to do so. Please switch off all mobile phones or turn them to silent, please. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of this meeting will be filmed except where there are confidential or exempt items. If you make a representation to the meeting, you will be deemed by the council to have consented to being filmed. By entering this meeting, you are also consenting to being filmed by the council and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and/or training purposes. The council, members of the public and press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. Can I kindly remind members to speak clearly into the microphones and to not put their papers or laptops over the microphones? Can I move to the agenda, please? Apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We have received apologies from Councillor Ross Piper, Councillor Anders Linder, Councillor Sarah Mansell and Councillor Gilly Morgan.
Thank you. Declaration of interests by councillors. The Monitoring Office has granted dispensation to all members on the Council's companies. Are there any other declarations of interest?
Thank you, Chair. Can I register an interest in agenda item 16, paper MC 2413, supporting residents in need? I am a trustee of the Stowmarket Relief Trust, which is mentioned in the papers, and also in agenda item 17, MC 2414, the Stowmarket Town Centre Gateway Fund, as I am a town councillor. On both items, I don't believe it disbars me from speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scarf. Any other declarations of interest? No. Item 3. Oh. Sorry, Councillor Rowe.
I'm also a Stowmarket Town Councillor, so I'll declare the same interest as Councillor Scarf.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Lay. Thank you. Councillor Patchett. Thank you. Councillor Carter.
Ditto.
Thank you. Okay, item 3, to confirm the minutes of the annual meeting held on the 22nd of May for accuracy only. Are there any issues with accuracy? Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Matheson, can I have a second? Oh.
On page 9 as the...
Could you stand, please, Councillor Matheson?
Sorry, yes.
Thank you.
The administration was undoubtedly not buried, and I think that what Councillor Mellon actually said was that the administration was bedded in. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Overett.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to point out that the term chairman makes a regular appearance throughout these papers, in particular in the first set of minutes. The Constitution was changed several months ago for a uniform use of the word chair, and it would be very good to see this agreed change reflected across the board, both in our reports and also in our debates. Thank you.
Thank you very much for highlighting that. Thank you. Councillor Davies.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that the people in attendance on the first set of minutes, there's no apologies for absence on it because I'm not on there, but I'm on the next one, and I wasn't there for both.
Thank you. Okay. Could we have a proposer, please? Councillor Mellon, can we have a seconder, please? Councillor Eburn. All those in favour? Sorry, we will do this as a show of hands vote. With amendments. We will do this as a show of hands vote. All those in favour? That is carried. Item 4, to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of May 2024 for accuracy only. Are there any issues with accuracy? No. Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Mellon, can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Eburn. We will do this again as a show of hands vote. All of those in favour? That is carried. Okay, moving on to Chair's announcements. I refer you to paper MC/24/9 for noting. I would like to thank my Vice Chair, Keith Scarf, for attending events in my place during the pre-election period when I stood as a candidate and was myself restricted from representing the Council as Chair at these engagements. So thank you very much. Our first fundraiser for our chosen charity, the Food Museum, took place last Saturday. A group of councillors and friends completed a 6-mile stretch of the long-distance walking route called the Mid-Suffolk Footpath. The walk began in Eye and concluded in Thwaite at the local watering hole and vegetarian pub, the Walnut Tree. I would like to thank councillors Andy Mellon, John Matheson, David Penny, Tim Weller and others who endured the intrepid outing in the hot weather. Donations to our charity can be made on our Civic Officers page on the Just Giving website. Thank you. Item 6, Leader's Announcement. I would like to invite Councillor Mellon to present his update for us.
Thank you, Chair. And firstly, I would like to echo your comments about the sad deaths of former councillors David Byrne and Peter Gould. Both men were intelligent and articulate advocates for their communities and served this district well as councillors and cabinet members, and we send our condolences to their families. Now, this is our first full council meeting for a while due to the general election, and I wanted to take the opportunity to thank our council's elections team and the many staff who got involved for successfully delivering the election in 3 constituencies, 2 in Mid-Suffolk and 1 in Bayber. It was a huge undertaking, 268 polling stations, 2 separate count venues and nearly 800 staff involved. But the counts were carried out efficiently and diligently, and can I pass our thanks to Arthur as returning officer and everyone else involved. And we welcome our 3 new MPs who cover Mid-Suffolk. That's Patrick Spencer in Central Suffolk and North Ipswich, Peter Prinsley in Bury St Edmunds and Stowmarket, and Adrian Ramsey in Waveney Valley. Now, we look forward to working with them to achieve the best for our residents, businesses and communities. I have written to them congratulating them on their election and raising, I think, the 3 key issues that we want our representatives to raise in Westminster. The HRA funding, rural transport and the need for a government-led retrofit programme. Now, I know that many members in this chamber are also rightly concerned about international events such as the terrible situation in Gaza and in particular the harm being done to civilians on both sides, and I'm happy to raise those concerns with our MPs when we meet. Another issue that we need to highlight with government is the potential impact of the proposed Norwich to Tilbury pylon line. Now, members will recall that we debated this last year and asked the then Chair, Councillor Warboys, to write to the Secretary of State. Now that we have a new government and a new Secretary of State in place, there is a case for writing again to reiterate our position. And I would like to request that if the leaders of the Conservative and the Lib Dem groups agree that we ask the Chair to write to the Secretary of State on behalf of the whole Council, I'm happy to discuss that outside of this meeting. I would like to also remind councillors that our popular community fun days get underway this week. These events give families the opportunity to come together and have fun during the school holidays. They are free to attend and everyone's welcome. In addition, children who receive free school meals can book places and get a free packed lunch, and details are available on our website. First event is tomorrow at Stradbrook, followed by others at Stowmarket on Monday and in Thurston on the Monday the 12th of August. These will be really good events, and some of them even offer the chance to try out axe throwing, should that be of interest to any colleagues in the chamber. I'm not sure about the phrase axe throwing in the chamber, but anyway. Just in addition to these tabled announcements, I would like to report that last week I attended the East of England Local Government Association Summit on Net Zero and Climate Resilience in Cambridge, a very useful event, where the report Opportunity East was launched. And I recommend that members and officers have a look at that. It's been produced by the East of England Local Government Association. And lastly, I am pleased that our recent Cabinet meeting we were able to approve a draft social value policy for the Council. This provides a framework so that our procurement decisions can improve social, environmental and economic well-being for the district. And can I commend the work that's been done on this by officers and by my councillor colleague Rachel Eburn in pushing this forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mellon. So, item 7, to receive notification of petitions in accordance with Council procedure rules.
None received, Chair.
Item 8, questions by the public in accordance with Council procedure rules.
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Item 9, questions by councillors in accordance with Council procedure rules. I refer you to the question in the table papers. I would now like to invite Councillor Whitehead to ask his question.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, my question is addressed to the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources. The Council recently posted to its Facebook page that a new EV charger has been installed at Needham Lake with, quote, the previous charger having reached the end of its working life. Please could the Cabinet Member advise for how long this previous charger has been sited at Needham Lake, excluding the lengthy period when the charger was fenced off from the public during the construction of the Duck and Teapot Cafe. What was the total cost to the public purse, both capital and expense, from its installation to its full decommissioning? And what was the total metered kilowatt hours of electricity over its working life? Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to invite Councillor Eburn to respond.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Whitehead, for your question. The EV charger at Needham Lake was installed in 2019 and the cost was £17,602, and obviously this was under previous administration. The charge point was subject to vandalism in 2021 and then refurbished as part of the Duck and Teapot Cafe project. So it's wrapped up in that in 2022. And over this period, the charger was out of action for approximately 6 to 9 months. Plus, clearly, during COVID, there was little use there. And we're all aware that there's particular issues at this charge point being unreliable since installation due to various reasons. And that advice was given at the time to replace it. This was backed up by checking the uptime, which was 68% compared to greater than 99% over the general network. However, for the last year, July 23 to 24, we can confirm the cost of electricity, or the amount of electricity was 11,843 kilowatt hours at a cost of £3,257. Operations and maintenance was £511.55, and the income generated was £5,586. Therefore, an annual return for 23-24 was £1,817.45 for this last year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Eburn. Councillor Whitehead, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, my supplementary question isn't on the data provided, because I'd need a bit of time to look at that. But I just wondered, what is the estimated working life of the new machine?
Thank you. Councillor Eburn, would you like to respond?
Thank you very much for that. And just to say, Councillor Whitehead, I only got some of this data today, so I'll get it through to you in email or ask one of the officers to do that. So apologies you didn't have it in advance. It would normally be my preferred option to provide some of this detail in advance rather than just read it out. The operating... I don't have the detail now, obviously, of what the operating life of the current system that's being installed now is, but I will get that information for you, and safe to say that we're expecting it to be far greater than the previous one. So we will, the other thing that we want to do is actually provide a proper return on investment on the new one, and so once it's been in operation for several months, then we'd update that. And if you wanted to have an update on that, well, I'll happily provide it to you. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, item 10, Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Annual Report 23 to 24, and Draft Work Plan 2024 to 2025. I would like to invite Councillor Caston, Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, to introduce this report, but firstly, I would like a proposer for this. Councillor Caston, and seconder, Councillor Scarr. Thank you. Councillor Caston.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm pleased to present this annual report 23-24. It highlights our effort to bolster governance and accountability within our council. We have scrutinised lots of significant issues, including planning enforcement, the culture, visitor and heritage economy strategy, homelessness and sewage. We've made 60 recommendations. Our goal in this next coming year is to improve the public participation within the committee and to make sure our recommendations are the best quality they can possibly be and are heard. I thank everyone involved for their hard work, especially Alicia, who's been absolutely fantastic on this committee and looked after me very well. And I look forward to the next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Caston. I would also like to commend this committee for the hard work, the hard and thorough work that they do, members and officers, and I think that this is demonstrated in the report. Are there any questions for Councillor Caston? Councillor Winch.
You mention in the report about the fact that some of the actions sometimes don't appear to be done, or you're not clear whether they're going to be done. Have you got anything in your mind as to how that could be addressed?
Thank you very much. Yes, we do have a bit of an issue with the recommendations not being replied to. Basically, the way I see it with overview and scrutiny is we don't have the power to make anyone do anything. We can make suggestions. The more useful they are, the more likely we are to persuade you to do them. When I say you, I'm talking about officers mainly. But when we don't get a reply or to our recommendations, I think that means it still sits within scrutiny's responsibility, because just because the scrutiny committee has made a recommendation and pointed something out and it hasn't been replied to, I think that's still our responsibility to make sure we get a reply in some form, even if that reply is we don't have the resources or we don't think that that's a useful recommendation. So we have actually organised a meeting with Arthur to discuss this in September, and we're going to work around a way that we can sort of just push that we want an answer. We don't expect the answer straight away. We know that it takes time to deal with these things, but we don't want recommendations sitting there for 12 months, which it's got pretty close to, with some of them highlighted in this report. Thank you.
Councillor Matheson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, before I ask my question, can I commend to Councillor Caston, many years ago when I was on the Scrutiny Committee, the previous Chief Executive used to have an annual agenda item on Scrutiny Committee and turn up and field many, many questions. So I commend that as a good idea. I just one little point on page 47, recommendation number 16. You lost me at bridge charting. I'm not familiar with the term.
Sorry, if you could just give me a chance to find that. I haven't got it open at the right page. Could you just tell me what that recommendation was again, please? Right, okay, yes, so bridge charting was seen as one of the ways that we could make the papers more readable. I can't remember exactly what it is. It was a suggestion made by one of the members of the committee, but at the time it was, when I heard it, I thought it sounded like a great idea, so I
Thank you very much.
Sorry? Okay, so yes, I've taken advice, and it's bridging the last budget to the budget you're looking at, and you know, so that you're looking at both of the budgets rather than just one as a single budget piece. Yeah, thank you, and I'll give regard and talk about your suggestion as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Caston. Councillor Scarf.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, well, it gives me great pleasure to second the report, but also remind members actually of the role of scrutiny within the council and what it can actually do, because it's not just call-ins where you have a chance to bring something to scrutiny. You can actually bring a topic to scrutiny, suggest it either to James, myself or Alicia, and we can review that topic and see whether it's suitable for scrutiny. I think with the process that we've got now with the scoping report, it's easy for you to see the kind of information that we would like, and I would really encourage members to do that, because it's your committee as well. It's the committee, if you like, that holds the cabinet to account, and I know that's sometimes difficult, but it's a good committee. I think we work really well with our council colleagues on Baber as well. And I think the process of scrutiny, and I've been on it for some time, the same as James, has evolved quite nicely. And I think as a council, we actually operate a very effective scrutiny system, but there's always room for improvement. So please feel free to approach us.
Thank you very much, Councillor Scott.
Just to say that I actually didn't thank my Vice Chair when I did the introduction, but I did in the foreword. But he's absolutely essential to the process, and I'm very, very pleased to have his help. Alicia's done a huge amount on that call-in piece of work to make that simpler and easier to get across. We're trying to bring that into the meetings a lot more, where committee members and councillors can bring things forward, and just try and get as much information as possible to scrutinise. But yeah, thank you very much.
Any more questions? No? Okay. Councillor Caston, have you anything else to add?
I think I might have just done that
Excellent.
at the end, so I beat you to it, but thank you, everyone.
Excellent. Well, thank you again to the committee for the excellent work that they do. I will now ask the lead Office for Members and Systems to conduct the electronic vote to formally note the report.
Thank you, Chair. That vote, members, is now in progress. Thank you, Chair. That's 30 votes for, so that's unanimous.
Item 11, Capital Investment Fund Company, CIFCO Capital Limited, Business Trading and Performance Reports. I would like to welcome Sir Christopher Howarth, Chair of CIFCO Capital Limited, Nigel Golder, Director of Strategic Asset Management, JLL, Patrick Dixon, Senior Surveyor, Strategic Asset Management from JAL, and Jack Anders, Senior Manager from Ensor's Accountants. Councillors, I would like to deal with this item in the open part of the agenda, if possible. So can I please ask members to refrain from asking any questions that relate to individual tenants and the associated risks? If you wish to ask questions on those details, can you please indicate this, and we will move into a closed session at that point before returning to an open session to vote on the recommendations in the report. If councillors do have questions relating to business tenants or other confidential information, may I encourage them to take their questions outside the meeting to the relevant officers and members, but if that answer does not affect the way they intend to vote. I would like to invite Councillor Winch to introduce paper MC 2411 and to move the recommendations which are noted in the report. Councillor Winch.
Thank you. So this item is to note CIFCO's trading performance up to March 2024 and to look at the business plan for the year 2024 to 2025. We would like to move the setting of the business plan and the review to earlier in the year, and some good work was done on that, but then we had the general election, so it's moved back a month. What I'm going to do is split my comments into two parts. The first part is really about the performance of the company, and then the second part is what is CIFCO like as an investment for the council. There's a huge amount of data in the papers, and sometimes it's difficult to see the wood from the tree. So I'm just going to draw out a couple of things that seem to jump out to me. So just a bit of background, I think we all know this. CIFCO is a trading company set up jointly by Baber and Mid Suffolk. It has 22 assets, 83 tenants, and it's got a spread of sectors, geographies and sizes to try and minimise the risk and spread the risk. So the three things that jump out to me in the numbers is, number one, there's been this time a slight fall in the value of the assets. So last year the assets dropped by a bit over 12%, 12.34%. This year they've declined by 2.58% on a like-to-like basis. We've actually got an additional property, the Stanton Co-op, this year, but on a like-to-like basis there was a drop. So and that has resulted actually in a £3 million, roughly £3 million loss for the company. So I think the position on this is we would definitely not like the asset value to be dropping, but from the company point of view, how much of a concern is it? I think the company would be saying the asset value is likely to recover over time. It doesn't directly affect the operational trading of the company at this moment, but obviously it restricts what options you've got in terms of selling assets. If you sold an asset below its value now, you just crystallise a loss. So that's number one thing that jumps out. The second thing that jumps out to me is a lot of the operational data in here is actually quite good. So the contracted revenue grew by a bit over 4% and is now 5.785 million. And things like the rent collection, rent arrears, the voids rate at 3.4% is below industry norms. So those kinds of things are good. Our EPC program is good, so now half the portfolio has an EPC level C or above, and we're on target to reach everything above C by 2027. The third thing that jumps out is maybe not so good, and I don't think you need to be a financial expert to sort of say, well, the income of the company is 6.4 million. It has to give 4.4 million to the councils. That's like a fixed amount every year, so we're down to 2 million. Its costs in terms of the infrastructure and advice that it needs to operate is a bit below 1.3 million, so I'm now down to 700,000. I'll have to pay tax and do certain essential things. So the amount of working capital that the company is producing is quite low. So I think if I was in the company, this would be my main concern, because I'm trying to look at it just from the company's point of view at the moment. If I look at the business plan, some of the things are repeats of last year. So reduce and mitigate voids. It's obvious that you need to make sure you don't have the properties empty for longer than you need to maximise the rent. Continue with the EPC improvement programme and manage the overall risk of the portfolio in terms of size, income sector. Something that jumped out to me, and some of you may have noticed it, there's a slide in the presentation pack entitled something like 5-year cash flow, which shows a very alarming drop in revenue around 2026, 27, 28. That is mainly due to the fact that we've got a lot of break clauses in the properties in 2026, and the title of that slide should probably be worst case scenario if everybody broke on schedule. It is important to be aware, though, that we do have a risk in 2026 with a lot of breaks. The other things that are in the business plan is there's something called strategic capital expenditure, and what I think that means is being very careful about the money we spend on the properties we've got to target it in the best way, and management of dilapidation, so i.e. when a tenant leaves, that you maximise the amount of money that you get from after they've left. The thing I really wanted to comment on is the sections that says funding capital 2025 and beyond. So that's really got three scenarios. So the immediate scenario is you need to be very careful about the money that you're spending and maximise dilapidations. Then the next stage is we're going to have to sell some properties in order to create enough working capital to do the work that's required to refurbish some of the properties. And the third stage is as the income grew, there'd be enough income to have a fund within the company to do the refurbishment on an ongoing basis. So I think they're the main things that I'd pick out with the numbers. CIFCO from a council investment point of view. So just a reminder to everyone, the way this was set up is roughly £50 million was input into the company from the two councils. 90% as loans and 10% as equity. CIFCO is an independent company, gets the money from the assets it owns, and it pays the council 5% on the loans. And our net income is the difference between the 5% and the amount we borrow money for. In the medium term, the company could generate more profit, which could potentially go to the council as dividend, and medium means to me after 10 years, at least 10 years away. And in the long term, the debts would be paid off, the assets would be owned, and the margin would go up. That was the logic of the investment. I think it's fair to underline the Green Party has historically had concerns about CIFCO, setting up a CIFCO, really around two areas. Concerns around borrowing large sums of money to invest in property outside the district, and concerns over the financial risks of something that we might not fully understand. And I think it's fair to say these concerns haven't gone away, but we're much more confident that we understand some of the risks and challenges. And I believe, we had a little talk about some of the presentation in the pack, but I believe there's a lot of information now provided by officers and by CIFCO to enable a lot of the detail to be understood. So there's a couple of things on the investment side I want to sort out. If you look at sections 8.1 and 8.2, it covers off, well, how much net income does the council get? In other words, if CIFCO didn't exist, what difference would it make? So since 2017, we've had a contribution of 6.4 million. This year was about 793k, and last year 1.4 million. And the way I try and assess this is I try and think of the total income of the council, which is about 15.6 million. So how does that equate to the total income? So it's about 5 to 10% of the total income. Table 8.8 shows something that is a little bit more concerning, and that is potential impact of continued higher interest rates on this investment. As it happens, interest rates are going to fall, almost certainly, and the table in there is looking at theoretically what could happen. We're expecting the net income from CIFCO to be about 825,000 in the budget for this year, not the lower numbers in that report. But what it does show is that a significant element of our back-to-back, we actually haven't got an entire back-to-back loan, so we're getting 5%, and 54% of the back-to-back we haven't got a secured loan on. So it fluctuates with changes in interest rates. So if you think about it, we can only get 5%. If the interest rate goes above 5%, our margin gets quite strongly threatened. Now, in the short term, that's going to disappear. Most of us looking at the world in the next 5 to 10 years would be worried about that. The other thing that I would like to point out is the last couple of years, CIFCO has made reduced debt payments to the councils to fund capital works, because going back to this working capital issue, for this year onwards, full debt repayments will be made. and the deferred interest will be paid over the next 10 years. A couple of concluding remarks. CIFCO is overseen by the Board of Directors. We're going to, going forward, have 2 directors from each of the councils, just so we spread more of the detailed knowledge. So the CIFCO numbers and the business plan are reviewed by the CIFCO board, the holdings board, the overview and scrutiny committee, the joint cabinets, and now the full council. So there's plenty of scrutiny going on. I'd like to thank officers, Emily Atack and her team, for the work they're doing, Sir Christopher Hayworth, the non-exec directors, and JLL, as we're reliant on their expertise to ensure we control this investment in the most effective way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Winch. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm more than happy to second this proposal, and I would also like to add my thanks to the officers and the consultants that do a lot of good professional work on this subject. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Winch. We will now move to questions. Councillors may ask as many questions as they wish. However, they must be relevant to the subjects under discussion and must be a question. Who would like to start? Councillor Lawrence.
I know the report has a KPI of achieving C in all its properties by 2027. And we've also heard, in looking at the report, to find out there is significant risk in 25, 26 with termination of letting and leases. And I'd like to know how much the KPI of achieving C by 2027 may be adjusted to cope with those losses in the future. Will the KPI be dropped in preference to the viability of the company? Thank you.
Probably going to get an officer to comment here, but the 2026 thing is really flagged as a risk. The assumption is that that can be managed and there won't be that significant drop in revenue. I think the assumption at the moment is that both things can be achieved, but I will ask Emily to comment on that.
Thank you, Councillor, for your question. So there's no intention to alter the KPI in respect of achieving all of our properties achieving C by 2027. That, in part, is to align with legislation and the requirements that we have in order to address the climate change issues that we have. So certainly as a board, we don't have any intention of altering that KPI. It may be of assistance for you to know that the costs of improving the EPCs of our properties don't always fall on CIFCO as the landlord. In many cases, tenants are undertaking works to improve the energy efficiency of their own buildings. They benefit from a reduction in the cost of energy as a consequence. So a number of the improvements that we've already seen in our portfolio have actually been funded by tenants. The board will take opportunities when properties become vacant to look at what improvements can be undertaken in any refurbishments to improve the EPC ratings of the properties. And we also work with our tenants so that if a tenant comes forward wanting to make some alterations to the property, we'll also talk to them about whether there are any further works that they could be undertaking or slightly different works they could be undertaking which would benefit the EPC of the property as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Padgett.
Thank you, Chair. So a question about the administrative costs, which are quite high, 1.27 million. And considering the fact that our portfolio value has sort of staggered down, do you feel we're getting good value for money at over £1 million for the financial advice that we're receiving?
I think the costs of our advice are linked to the performance, so there is a link there. This is a tricky one because it seems a large amount. Where I am mentally on this is, if we've got this company, we really have to make sure it is well managed because we cannot allow any significant risk to occur from this company. So I think we, at the moment, believe this is a reasonable level of expenditure, but I take the point of the question. I think it's a good question.
Thank you, Councillor Winch. Any other questions? Okay. Since the questions are finished, we will now move to debate. Councillors will be allowed to speak once for 3 minutes, and this will be timed. Would anybody like to start the debate? No? Okay. Oh, sorry. Councillor Scarf.
I'll add something then to get us started. I'm a member of the Joint Overview and Scrutiny Committee, so obviously we've seen this report before and had the chance to discuss it and ask questions. But I think, from my point of view, the biggest challenge for CIFCO is not to reach the EPC-C by 2026-27, but to actually reach B, which comes in a few years later. Now, we did question quite ruthlessly the officers about this at the Scrutiny Committee, but I think that is potentially a big risk, because if you don't get to that B, then you've only got 2 more years after that before you've got to do it, come what may. And of course, when you're renting properties such as offices, tenants now are expecting such a higher EPC rating. So the pressure will be on, I think, the CIFCO board to ensure that we reach B as soon as possible, in fact earlier than the deadline that the government has imposed upon us, because that makes commercial sense for us as a council, because it makes particularly our office properties more lettable, and we all know that office properties at the moment are going in a different direction to how they used to be following COVID. So I think that, for me, was the biggest challenge that came out of the CIFCO report when it came to scrutiny.
Thank you. Would anybody like to add anything further? Councillor Caston?
Yeah, just adding on to what Councillor Scarf was just saying. I think this EPC, it is spending money on it, but it is absolutely essential, because when we get to 2027 and beyond, the supply of these premises will drop, and I think incomes will go up. I hate what that does to the market. I think that will be very damaging, but the fact that we got our EPCs together when we got a chance, the people not doing that will have properties that they potentially can't let out, and that will be very serious for them, and I think an advantage for us. I think these might be tougher times. I still have complete faith that over a long enough period, this is going to be a fantastic investment for this council, and in years to come, they'll thank us for it. But I do understand that things have been tight, but I believe this particular period is not something we need to be dwelling too much on. We need to be looking to the future and what that will bring us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Whitehead?
Thank you, Chair. I do like to say a few words, positive words about CIFCO. I'd like to thank Councillor Winch for what I think was a very balanced introduction and assessment of the situation. I mean, the report shows that CIFCO's got a running yield of 5.88%, and on a cumulative basis on page 74, it shows interest received of 9.869 million compared to interest paid out of 4,067,000. That's a 2.43 to 1 ratio of income to cost, which I think is a nice, good bit of headroom. The loans we've taken out, I look at them on page 75, 10 million over 10 years at 1.71%, and 12.5 million over 50 years at 2.63%. And I think, I wish I could borrow money at that rate for that length of time and that amount, because it really has proved to be a good investment. Today's rates for 10 years are 4.92%, and for 50 years are 5.59%, which would make the equation quite different. So I think in 40 years' time or 30 years' time, when perhaps none of us are here, there'll be councillors that look at those borrowing rates and wonder how we did it. And of course, those are annuity loans, so every year we are paying off part of the capital. Within 10 years, that 10 million will be paid off, and that will be 10 years of equity, effectively. We'll still get the income, but no cost there. Then over 50 years, the other big loan. And the short-term loans, interest rates should be falling. And, okay, we've got, there are concerns in 2 or 3 years in terms of vacancies, but that to me is an opportunity for new tenants, new negotiations. So I think we're probably at the bottom point in terms of the valuation process. We're still making good money, and as Councillor Caston says, I think it's a long-term legacy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lawrence. Sorry.
Thank you. I'm afraid I have a contrary view to Councillor Casson in the EPC standards, us being ahead of the game here. My concern here is that if we don't keep ahead of the game with investment in new properties, which are built energy efficient, and we continue to run with old properties and trying to upgrade and update them, we'll be left flogging dead horses. And that is my concern about how we respond to the EPC rating issues. And so I'd like some assurance, okay, we have a professional management agencies, JLL, running the assets for us, but I am concerned that we will be left flogging dead horses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Mellon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Very grateful to Councillor Winch for his very detailed summary of the business plan and looking forward. And I absolutely agree that this is a well-run company, and we're very grateful to Sir Christopher and the team for what they do in running CIFCO. But that does not take away the fact that this company is structurally problematic. And we have a large proportion of our future debts not at fixed interest rates, and that provides us with a certain amount of vulnerability. So there's a problem there, and I think that it will become more of a problem if the reduction in the value of the properties continued on the current trend. Let's hope, as Councillor Whitehead said, that we've seen the bottom of it and they will start to go up. Clearly, we need to improve the EPCs. I think that makes the properties much easier to rent out, and that's what companies are looking for now. They're looking for properties that are well insulated, that are cheap to run in terms of running costs, and often that's part of their ESG agenda, is to make sure that they are covering those aspects. So I think it's a very good report. If we were starting from as an administration, would we set up CIFCO? Probably not, but we are running with it as we are, and we have to make sure that it's run to the best we can do, and that's what's happening. And I'm very pleased that we can have this report and recommend it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Winch, do you have anything to add? Oh, sorry, we've got another question. Councillor Reburn.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks to Councillor Winch again, and thanks also to all the officers and Chris and the non-exec directors. I really appreciate the work that you do. I will be supporting this, but as everyone knows, despite the fact that I don't agree in principle with investing in commercial property outside our district, but it would, as we know, it would not be financially responsible at this time to try to undo CIFCO, exposing taxpayers to significant losses, and with only a tiny 1.5% return. I know the previous administration were very enthusiastic about this, I would really have liked those in terms of being thanked for something. For one thing, I would like to be thanked for the fact that our housing stock is improved and gets in better condition after the years of poor investment. I'd like to be thanked for kind of being able to sort out the local community projects that we've got, particularly the ones that in Stowmarket that have been where the engagement with our communities has. We've as administration have had to do a lot of work to try to ensure that we're actually getting back on side our parishes and town councils, and equally some of the major funding projects we've done, such as, or we're doing, such as the Innovation Centre, the amount of work that we've done on that in order to successfully get an 83% of external funding, where the original project was only about 20%. So those are the things that I think that, we should really be focusing on, and should have focused on perhaps over the last few years, as opposed to this kind of project. However, as a certain person I know of used to actually say, we are where we are, and I'm pleased that it's being well run, but I think we do need to kind of constantly review it. And I know that it hasn't been mentioned tonight, but I know the scrutiny committee were particularly keen to get more detail and not have the redacted documents, so that they were able to actually really scrutinise in depth and have those detailed conversations with the officers and with the board members about that. And I think that kind of detailed work to be done before it comes to council or comes to other committees would be really useful. So I think that would be something that we should just make sure that we can make happen. So thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to comment? Councillor Marriott.
Hello, it's really relating to... Sorry?
Could you stand, please? Thank you.
Yes, it's slightly related to what Councillor Lawrence said. I was going to sort of say it before, but I can't find the table here, but I seem to recall a table which actually linked the EPC ratings to the age of the buildings. And as one might imagine, the oldest buildings had the worst EPC ratings, and the sort of Edwardian type buildings was also sort of slightly bad. So I just wonder if some sort of, maybe as Councillor Lawrence was suggesting, some sort of cost-benefit analysis needs to be carried out on the benefits of renovating those older buildings.
Thank you. Okay, I would like to move back to Councillor Winch. Would you like to add anything?
I'll be very, very brief. So I'd like members to vote in favour of this item. I've just written down the 5 bullets that are things that we're probably going to look out for in the future as soon as we see information about CIFCO. The property value, what's happening to the capital value. Have we got a route forward on the working capital issue? What's happening about the expiries in 2026? What's happening about the EPC programme? And where are we on our net income? They're the 5 bullets, I think, that we'll immediately look at in the future. But I'd like members to vote for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Winch. I will now ask the lead officer for members and systems to conduct the electronic vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Chair, that is 29 votes for and 1 abstention.
Thank you, that is carried. We are now going to take a 10-minute break to enable our guests and members of the public to leave if they wish to. We will come back at 20 to 7 to carry on with the rest of the business. Thank you. Noting that Councillor Carter is making his way back now. I would like to reconvene the meeting. We're on item 15, Mid-Suffolk State of the District Report 2024. I would like to invite Councillor Mellon to introduce paper MC 2412 and move the recommendation in the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the State of the District Report is 49 pages, starting on page 219 of our papers. This is our second State of the District Report. We're going to be producing these on an annual basis. And these reports draw on a range of open source data, which are published at district level, and the Council's own resident survey. And the report provides an overview of that data, and it kind of highlights many of the strengths within the district, and alongside that, some of the key challenges that the Council and other agencies are seeking to address. So in doing so, it reinforces the basis for the Mid-Suffolk Plan, which we agreed last year unanimously, and it shows that we are responding to the right challenges for our district. So this report has been brought to full council for councillors to note. There's no decision to be taken, but we're going to vote to note it, and it shows where we are and sits alongside our action plan and our quarterly performance reports to show how we are addressing any issues identified. Just to say a little bit about the structure of the report, it's organised into 4 main sections. There's an introductory overview of the district in terms of its setting, resident population, business population, and then followed by chapters on climate change in the environment, community strength and well-being, and resilience. And if you just want to look at a summary, there's a 2-page summary right at the beginning. So this report draws on the latest available published data, and we've added some new data sources since the previous year's report so that we've got fresh content in there. Some of the data from last year is repeated just to show a kind of the trend and context, and sometimes there isn't refreshed data available for key measures. And where possible and where appropriate, time series data has been included throughout the report, so that shows the long-term trends. And also, what we've done in this report is included some additional data excuse me, based on requests in this chamber, questions that have been asked at councils over the last year. So a couple of examples are access to GPs and educational attainment. So just to give you the headline findings, as we know, a predominantly rural district, we're in the least deprived third of local authority areas, so I think that means we're in the top third. And we have an older than average population. But in Mid-Suffolk we see higher than average levels of home and car ownership, higher than average levels of life expectancy, educational attainment at age 19, personal well-being and other factors too. But we do have a range of challenges. And one of the big challenges is decarbonising the transport sector, our homes, industry and the agricultural sectors. Another problem is the distance some people live from the services that they need or where they may work. There's still issues around growth of business, about adult qualifications being below the national level, and our earnings from work being below the national level. And then, of course, we all know the issue of housing affordability and the increase in costs of renting. And we still have poverty and we still have inequalities in our district, although lower levels than others. So just to say that this report is a kind of key resource for us as councillors, for officers and for the whole organisation and for stakeholders outside this council. It provides part of the evidence base which sort of informs our plans for the district, and we're going to publish this on the website, and can I encourage you to approve voting to note this report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mellon. Can I have a seconder? John Matheson. Sorry, Councillor Matheson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, right, I'm very pleased to be able to second this the proposal and welcome this report. I think it was a welcome innovation by the administration last year, and I think that it should indeed help us and the public to understand their district, their council. One suggested addition for next time would be some information about electoral registration and participation in elections, as I know that nationally the Electoral Commission has found there are about 5 million people in the country who are not registered to vote at all, and it's always worried me that, you know, how many of them actually live in Mid-Suffolk, so that's one innovation perhaps for next time. And I think the idea that perhaps that our students, our sixth formers and so on, might actually use it as a resource for some of their own studies, and then further understand where they live and their council. So I second the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Matheson. We will now move to questions. Councillors may ask as many questions as they like. However, the questions must be relevant under the subject of discussion and must be a question. Would anybody like to ask a question? Councillor Walters.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to echo comments about the effectiveness and usefulness of this report, and it makes for good reading in places and not so in others. My question is, on page 247, there are references to adult obesity and childhood obesity. There is also reference to adult physical activity, but there doesn't appear to be any reference to young person's activity, and I wondered if this was something that maybe we could look to include in future reports.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mellon, would you like to respond?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks for that question, Councillor Walters. Yes, I'm not sure quite why that hasn't been included. I think we could look to include that in future years. Would it be okay, Chair, to ask an officer just to comment on that?
We'll check if it's available. I think the reason for not including it was that there wasn't a data point or suitable data published for that. I know there was some disruption, I think, to sort of collection around and post-COVID around some of the children's data related to that. But yeah, obviously we'll go away and see if that is available and whether that can be sort of incorporated going forward.
Thank you. Councillor Rowe.
Yeah, last year in the health bit of this, there was the stat of 42.9% of adults meet the recommended 5 a day fruit and veg target. So I was wondering, because that could feed into all sorts of different bits, we'd be looking at whether there was a reason that wasn't included in this year's one, or whether it be that sort of information be in future ones.
Councillor Mellon.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Rowe. I'm not sure if I need to declare an interest as a fruit farmer here. But obviously everybody should be encouraged to eat at least 5 pieces of fruit a day. I'm not sure quite why that information was not in this year where it was in last year's, but we are totally dependent on what's available publicly. It's not like our officers are going out and researching this. We're just looking for other data points that are available. I don't know if, Chris Holmes, you've got anything on that issue?
No, I think sort of obviously throughout this is obviously an element of editing to keep the report readable. So yes, whilst there are sort of multiple additional data that could be included, I think where obviously it was included last year, sort of a decision taken in terms of I guess, readability and length of report, not this time. But obviously, if there's sort of interest in the current figure, happy to provide that offline if helpful.
Thank you. Councillor Elkin.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask if it might be possible to include some data next time on access to dental care. There was a very useful section on access to ratios of population to GP, and I know that access to dental care is a particularly severe problem in lots of our districts, so it's just a request for next time.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Elkin. I know that's a real issue that is a concern for a lot of people in this area, particularly access to NHS dentists. If we can find that data, I'm sure we will include it next year.
Councillor Carter.
Thank you. I want to start by commending a report. Area, but we don't have many accessible buses or taxis. We don't have accessible, so it'd be interesting if we could get those statistics and can see where areas are that are falling behind and where we could do more. So I didn't know if it'd be possible to actually research access and try to include that.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Carter. That's a very important point. I mentioned earlier the fact that we have higher levels of car ownership in this part of the world. That could be taken two ways. You could take it that, you know, people are well enough to be able to afford to rent a car, or it could be that people can basically not live in a rural area without having one because of the lack of public transport and accessibility. I know your particular concerns about accessibility for people with limited mobility. I think it's really important that we capture that. It's an important thing. If that data is publicly available, I'm sure we can try to include that in future years.
Thank you. Councillor Baker.
Thank you. It's a great report. What I would like to ask is what strands of work will come from this? So it'd be great to have within the report what's going to happen now. So we've got all this information, you know, what parts go to which teams, which departments, you know, what's the plan now we've got all of this data?
Thank you. Councillor Mellon.
So I think, as I said, this data forms the kind of background to our plans for the district as an administration and as a council. And we have an action plan and delivery plan coming through that process. So it will form the background to that and provide a kind of a measure by which we can be held to account to some extent. So in some ways, it's a bit of a scary thing. I don't know if officers want to add something extra to that. Joe, did you want to say something? If that's okay, Chair?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Mellon. Yes, the data that we've included in this report has fundamentally come from all the teams from around our council. We work in conjunction because obviously it's work we've been working on for many years at the council, and certainly we work in conjunction with those teams, but also those teams do kind of greater deep dives into the different areas as well as they kind of go about their work. So it's kind of a bit of this is a stand back and have a look at an overview just to bring together everyone's work and look at that kind of commonality and how we're going to be delivering on the plan, the Mid-Suffolk plan. So it certainly it comes from all of our work already, and it will go on to kind of be relevant to all of our work too. But as Councillor Mellon said, through the action plan work and the work just to make sure we're delivering on the Mid-Suffolk plan.
Councillor Caston.
Thank you, Chair. I'm trying to keep this a question, but we have talked about getting more information. The household waste and recycling, it's basically a number that includes our waste, street bins, gully emptying, parks, ground waste, soil, compost-like output, asbestos and healthcare waste. So not all these types of waste are equal. Like I'd take a ton of soil over a ton of polystyrene or asbestos or healthcare waste. So I just think for this report, it would be nice to break that down. I know we can't have loads of information in there, but I find that a bit useless without like the different areas, so we know what we're doing, because I'm sure we're not too worried about soil as a waste, clean soil. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Caston. Councillor Lay.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to highlight on page 243, figure 15 shows quite a worrying trend with volunteering. As somebody who works in the charitable sector, I can see there, you know, it is starting to level off, but I just wondered what steps the council might be taking to see a U-turn on that and an increase in the level of volunteering. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lay. Councillor Mellon, could I ask you to, if you can, answer Councillor Lay's question first, and then perhaps if you wanted to come back to Councillor Caston's points, please feel welcome to do so.
Yeah, thank you. I thought I got away with that one. The figure I picked up is that levels of participation in volunteering are generally quite high compared to other areas. Something like 30% of people said that they do volunteering. And I think sometimes a figure like that is not just a fact, it's an indicator of something else. In this case, to my mind, that's an indicator of people's engagement with society and a certain amount of kind of social capital. So we do need people to be engaged, volunteer, whether that's from litter picking to you know, running a football team, or all the different things that people do in between, unpaid, to invest in their families and their society and their town and their village. I'm just looking at this trend. I suspect quite a bit of that is to do with COVID, and I hope that the levels will pick up over the long term. Just turning to the issue of waste, clearly we want to do a really good job in terms of recycling as much as we can, reusing as much as we can, and not treating stuff as waste. I mean, soil obviously can be used again to grow stuff in lots of other ways. So I think we could look at those figures and try and get a bit more useful data out of them. Clearly, we've got some significant changes coming our way with the changes in household collections over the next couple of years. So it's going to be really important that we monitor the waste figures, and we certainly want to make decisions that will help increase our recycling rate and reduce waste overall.
Thank you, Councillor Mellon. Councillor Marriott.
Page 227 on household dwellings. We see compared to the national average, we've got a much higher proportion of detached properties and properties with 4 or more bedrooms, but there's a correspondingly lower proportion of properties with only 1 or 2 bedrooms, linked to the lower proportion of flats. I just wondered if that finding is going to sort of feed into any sort of building programme for, say, affordable housing in future, and for maybe an advantage in terms of planning for those dwellings with fewer bedrooms and which are correspondingly cheaper and more affordable. Thank you.
Yes, I mean, I think those are interesting statistics. I'm also find it very interesting that we have so many properties with only a single occupant. We talk about a housing crisis, but I think often the fact is we've got enough bedrooms, they're just unequally distributed. I think the problem with future building is that we're so much in the hands of the house builders. They will build the houses that they can sell and the houses that they can make a profit from. I guess as a council we would love to be building more council homes and homes with small numbers of bedrooms if there's a demand for those. The funding around our HRA account is so difficult at the moment that it's very difficult to see us delivering very many of our own homes at all. But we are clearly advocating for that with government changes around the HRA funding, so that we can do more of that sort of thing.
Thank you. Councillor Patchett?
Thank you, Chair. So one statistic on page 241 I've sort of just spotted, which I find quite distressing about mid-Suffolk, is our tree canopy coverage. So the UK average, looking here to be an average of 16.3%, mid-Suffolk's average is almost half that, 8.5%. And I've just noticed that mine and Collins ward in particular is the absolute lowest at 6%. We're probably dragging the average down. So my question is, what are we actively going to do as a district council to increase these numbers?
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mellon, would you like to respond? Councillor Weller, would you like to respond, please?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Mellon. Councillor Patchett will be aware that we involved ourselves in a bid to be part of Forest for the Nation, which was unsuccessful, unfortunately. But that would have given us a great deal more capital to be able to invest in working with landowners to bring more trees online to increase our canopy cover. However, despite being unsuccessful there, we've still got plenty of other initiatives to increase our canopy cover, and we've got officers working heavily with landowners. Indeed, we've got an event with landowners that's been postponed because of the general election to September, where we'll be meeting with them to encourage them to look at alternative uses for bits of their land that they use less for agriculture that could be more used for biodiversity and tree planting. So we've got initiatives in train to be able to increase our canopy cover, and hopefully our future reporting in this report will reflect that positively. Thanks.
Excellent, thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Okay, as all the questions are finished, we will now move to the debate. Councillors will be allowed to speak once for 3 minutes, and this will be timed. Would anybody like to start the debate? Councillor Matheson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, seeing as no one else will. Yeah, a couple of points really. I think the point about the smaller houses we needed. Ever since I was on this council, we have struggled year after year in the planning committee with the developers to try and get these smaller houses. And as Councillor Mellon has said, it is very difficult. We do not have the powers to require developers to build what we need, what we know is needed. But that's a pain, really. But the main point I want to make is to wonder whether, with the volunteering going down, as Councillor Lay's pointed out, that would it not help if we stopped calling people residents customers and started calling them residents, or even, heaven forbid, citizens, because they would then understand perhaps better that it was their district and their council, and that they should, if they can, play a part in making it a better place. And so that is my one suggestion for tackling the volunteering. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Matheson. Councillor Walters.
Thank you, Chair. I would have liked to have come back to Councillor Caston, but obviously I wasn't invited to. But I do agree with your concern about those numbers in terms of, stripping out what is not really technically household waste from a title, a subject called household waste and recycling. Yes, I fully agree with that. My comments really are, as lead member for this council for waste and recycling, I just wanted to mention the fact that there has been a concerning drop in recycling rates in particular. It is in line with the Eastern region and with the UK more generally, and obviously working as part of Suffolk Waste Partnership, we are addressing it. I accept on behalf of the council that it is unwelcomed to have a drop, and you know, I am working very closely with officers to reverse it. I've spoken recently to one of the lead members at South Oxfordshire District Council, who are top of the league table for recycling rates, and had a really good conversation with her. She shared some collateral and data with me that they've been doing for the last 3 or 4 years, and I'm actually meeting with officers tomorrow afternoon to share some of this. Obviously, as Councillor Mellon mentioned, we do have simpler recycling coming down the track. Simpler recycling will help us, but it will help everyone. So again, it's all relative. Our recycling rate should go up, but so will the Eastern region and nationally. But obviously what we want to do is make sure ours go up higher and faster than those baselines. I have every confidence that this time, maybe not next year, but hopefully you will see an uptick in our recycling rates versus the Eastern region and the UK, but certainly in the next couple of years we should see a drastic increase in our recycling. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walters. Would anybody else? Sorry? Councillor Baker.
Thank you. Don't want to bang on about this particularly, but I did sort of mention about what happens now, what are the next sort of strands. And as Councillor Lay and Councillor Patchett just sort of mentioned, they mentioned sort of the volunteering aspect, thinking about Stowthorney with the tree canopy cover. It would be really great, and I would really welcome this. When you start to bury down into these figures, there's some particular things that you can pull out. And as part of this report, I'd really like to be able to see this is going to be an action focal point, but actually we now need to ask more questions about that. So it's great to have these sorts of reports, but I'd really like to see some focus action on these particular areas. I'd find that really helpful, and then we could move forward on some of these bits. That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Councillor Carter.
In regards to the volunteering aspect, it would be interesting if we had a overlay to areas of the poverty, areas of the cost of living where it has risen, and also had statistics of the ages of the volunteers. And I can assume that some areas where we have more retired volunteers, and for age, regards to the efforts of being to actually discourage people to be out of work, might have actually contributed to a loss of volunteers. It's also a bit cheeky to note that the lack of canopy in Stowthorney was commented on by residents as far back as, well, 2018 or further. And when they wanted to increase canopy and to protect certain areas, we had 2 large developments put into place and Gateway 14. But that's a bit, it's been done and dusted now. But it would be interesting to have certain figures to overlay. But as regards to the report, certainly it's a well thought report, and I'm certainly in favour of the report. And if we've done this much, we can do more next year. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Would anybody like to make... yes, Councillor Caston.
Just to speak on canopies, I think it is very difficult for this region because historic land use, we're a victim of having good quality soil. Historically, a lot of trees have been pulled out to allow for agriculture, which isn't quite so much of a issue in places that have poor soil and they large dense forest areas. But yeah, I think if we look at it as individual places, especially the urban areas, yeah, we definitely need to do something about that. We need to do everything we can to improve that. But I think if we're looking at national averages, we'll find it really difficult to actually bring that up because we are the breadbasket of the UK over here. So yeah, just to comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Caston. Okay. Councillor Warboys.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to thank the officers for this information, the data. Few years of 2 years of data isn't perhaps enough to identify trends, but it is quite clear that as which Suffolk appears to be in the top third of districts in terms of well-being. Nevertheless, there are some challenges for us, and the tone of the questions and the comments so far, I think, are really good in the sense that they avoid us sinking into complacency. There's two bits of data I'd like to draw some attention to. In which Suffolk, there's 1,945 children aged under 16 at risk of poverty. This is half the national average. Nevertheless, 1,945 children is a big number, especially as funding for holiday activities for children entitled to free school meals we're losing it. Another statistic which I find quite alarming, and I really hope this isn't part of a trend, is that 344 households in which Suffolk were assessed as being owed a statutory homelessness duty. That's an increase from 260 households in 2021-22. This is an alarming rise. So that while some of our residents are basking in an increase in value of their properties, some people are very far from that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Warboys. Any further comments? Councillor Mellon, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank everyone for the questions and contributions to the debate. I think this is a very useful report, and I think that's been highlighted by the fact that people have read it, they have drawn out statistics, and are starting to query why those statistics are as they are and wanting to seek to change them. That's a good thing. Can I just highlight one thing? Residents report high levels of satisfaction and pride in Mid-Suffolk, 84%. That's great, but we don't want to rest on our laurels. We want to make this place even better to live in. And we do still have those concerns, as Councillor Warboys has highlighted. But this is a really good starting point. It gives us a snapshot of where we are, and it also, I think, spurs us on to greater efforts to improve our district. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mellon. I will now ask the lead officer for members and systems to conduct the electronic vote.
Chair, members, that vote is now in progress on the app. You may need to scroll down a little bit to find it.
Tell her I'm in a meeting, I'll call her later.
Councillor Carter, are you having a problem?
Sorry.
That's fine.
I got distracted by the voice of the
Thank you, Chair. That's 30 votes for. That's unanimous.
Supporting residents in need. I would like to invite Councillor Eburn to introduce paper MC 2413 and to move the recommendation in the report. Councillor Eburn.
Thank you very much, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to thank officers for their diligent preparation of this report, and that's officers within various areas of the council and within the Shared Revenues Partnership. I'm going to be brief with my introduction today. There's a lot of detail in the report. If anyone has any particular technical questions, then I shall ask officers to help on that front. But I think the principles are relatively straightforward. This initiative is principally to help support residents who are still feeling the effects of the cost of living crisis. We know from residents themselves, from local organisations that provide assistance, and from the work of our own officers, that this is a very real issue. Prices have risen faster than working age benefits, and while rising inflation has slowed, the impact of high inflation on prices is still very real. Those goods have still gone up in price. They're not going down in price. There has been withdrawal of some government support, such as cost of living payments, and in a few months' time, well, in 2 months' time, housing support in the form of the Household Support Fund will end, and that provides a lot of support to households within Suffolk, and a proportion of that funding comes to Mid-Suffolk in the Household Support Fund. One of the simplest ways for us to provide direct support is via the council tax system, and then to provide additional personalised funding support through existing discretionary schemes. So what we're recommending in this paper today is 2 elements. Firstly, we're recommending the council tax support for all residents in receipt of council tax reduction of up to £50 allocated automatically, and that will be a sum needed to be required in total of about £85,000. And secondly, there'll be a financial top-up to the Household Support Fund, which is due to end at the end of September, to match the withdrawn support for the rest of the year, but also allow this fund to be extended to cover household essentials, including fuel, for example, for the whole year. And this is for when the rest of the part of the Household Support Fund, such as the Local Welfare Assistance Scheme, might not be available. This will mean a total cost to the council of around £40,000. And this allows us to provide very real benefits to residents in need, to allow other organisations who are working in these areas to then focus on their own targeted support that they provide. And we can provide officers with really good discretionary funding to really focus where the need is. So with that as a short introduction, I'm happy to take any questions. And as I say, the technical ones I will be asking for assistance from officers. But I'd like to propose the recommendations, and I'd like to ask Councillor Winch to second. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Eburn. Councillor Winch, are you happy to second this item?
Yep.
Yep.
So I think the background to this is that we really feel we need to do something. We're a small district council, but we have got some resources. We really should be doing something to address the cost of living crisis. One of the things in the background here is this thing called the Household Support Fund, which was the previous government's main way of trying to address the cost of living, is due to be scrapped in October this year. And actually the significant sums of money behind this, so there's over £400,000 being spent on something called local welfare assistance, and the substantial sums of money going into free school meals. So it's quite a big deal, and we're not quite sure what is going to happen with this with the new government. So this is very much, I think, building on what Councillor Eburn said, an interim measure. The 2 things that we're proposing, so with the council tax support, the thing I like about it is very targeted, it's very easy to administer, and it happens immediately, and people get credited against their council tax bill. With the Household Support Fund, we've taken something that we already do, topped it up, guaranteed it for this year, and made it a bit more flexible, so it applies to more things. It's more like moving towards a generic hardship fund rather than just for housing costs. So I think we're trying to be pragmatic within the framework that we've got. It's an interim step. When decisions have been made about the Household Support Fund, we can then decide how we react to that. And I'd urge members to vote for this, and I'm hoping that everyone in the chamber can feel that they can get behind this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Winch. We will now move to questions. Councillors may ask as many questions as they like, but they must be relevant to the subject under discussion and must be a question. Councillor Wiltshire, sorry.
Hi. Thank you, Chairman. Subject very close to my heart, and I'm really pleased to see Mid Suffolk stepping forward and putting some funds to support those in most need. My questions around the additions to the Household Support Fund, I'm concerned around, have you thought that whether actually the council are the best people to administer that? It's a very transactional factor to issue a grant, but potentially, it's all in Appendix B, page 283, that actually it doesn't necessarily look to the whole person aspect of potentially looking at how to get them out of that situation. My thoughts around perhaps working more closely with the VCFSE to potentially then be able to do perhaps a benefits check, look at debts, look at other things, as well as that immediate response with a household support fund payment. And with the greatest respect, we're notoriously not very agile at getting the payments out quickly because of the systems that are involved. So it's just a thought about working closer with perhaps with other organisations.
Thank you, Councillor Wiltshire. Councillor Reburn, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Wiltshire, for that question. We at the council we have financial inclusion officers, we have housing officers, we have a team of people actually working on this, and I think the key thing as well is to ensure those working relationships with the VCFCs are as effective as possible. And I think that's some work that has been going on quite a lot over this year in terms of the regular meetings and the liaison with those groups to ensure that we're not either doubling up with what those organisations are doing, that we're each working to our specialisms. And I think that will continue with regards to the funding that's available, because it's an existing scheme, specifically the household support fund element bit, is what you're referring to in your question. That's already in operation, and we are topping that up and ensuring that will continue for the year. I think one thing that we'll be working on going forward is the fact that because we've only got that for the year, over the next 6 months, what we will be doing is looking to see how that needs to continue potentially the following year. There's a new government come in. What will they be providing? Will we need to see whether they put some new funding in and perhaps call it something different or whatever else? But we do all need to be working together across the system to make sure that the best help gets to those most vulnerable residents. And so that is something that is being worked on. What we want to do here is just make sure we've got that, get that funding in place. We've got the funding here at Mid Suffolk to be able to do that in the short term, and then let's work particularly over the next 6 months to ensure it's going to exactly to the right place and is being we're using the right skills of those different organisations, including our own officers. Sorry, a very lengthy answer, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions? Councillor Patchett?
Thank you, Chair. So obviously, I welcome any help for any people in need. My question is that it does say that we're going to give people up to £50. So how do we arrive at this up to number? Surely, if people make a minimum criteria, why don't we just give them the £50, the whole amount, which in itself is quite low? Because up to £50 implies that some people may actually get something as low as £1. So why don't we just let people hit a criteria and then just give them the maximum? Surely that is much more beneficial to people.
Thank you. Councillor Eburn.
Thank you very much, and I might ask officers to come in, but a couple of points. One is that because throughout the year people will fall into, as it were, that amount, as in they might be below or above that amount at any point in the year, and they will then fall into that. So everyone's circumstances are changing throughout the year. It's not that there's, a point in time, as it were. So that's one aspect. The other point, I think, is this is automatic, and in terms of actually, yes, you're right that some people will have a lesser amount, but the interesting thing with people that are that receive the lesser amount, the one thing that they will benefit from in a way is there is reminder letters from Mid-Suffolk saying you're due to pay this, and the stress about thinking, oh, am I expecting this bill in from Mid-Suffolk? Well, that would be alleviated is another kind of benefit to that. But with regards to the £50, that was an amount arrived at just in terms of the total cost of the scheme, and something that would actually, because it took into account 1,300 households, that seemed to be a good figure in terms of the amount of people that we were able to support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hicks.
Thanks. Household Support Fund, fine, I get that, but I am struggling with the council tax support scheme. So can you just elaborate? Because obviously there are many residents that get very significant council tax reductions, virtually down to zero, because those on the who earn the least and are most in need actually don't pay council tax. So where does it kick in? And just following up the point that Councillor Patrick made, if some people are already getting significant discounts on council tax, are you going to give them is it giving them a further discount, so they're getting a double discount? And how are you going to work all that out? Because there's not that much detail in here, so I'm not convinced it's thought through enough yet.
Thank you. Councillor Eburn.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that, Councillor Hicks. If you want to, page 275 from paragraph 414 onwards, so there are 3,129 residents who have no council tax to pay. So they're not included in this. They've got no council tax, they've got no council tax liability. It's to do with those that have a council tax liability. So those ones that are then shown on the table below. And just in terms of when the amount will be automatic, I might ask one of the officer colleagues to respond to the specifics on that. But it is, like I say, those people, we're not giving the money to them. If they've not got a liability, then they don't get an additional £50, if that's what you're it's automatic, as it says here, yes. It's an automatic payment. If they have a liability, a council tax, if there's a liability that's up to £50, they will receive up to the £50 in order to remove that liability. I wonder if, perhaps I'll ask Amy May is from Shared Revenues Partnership just to qualify that, if I'm not making sense. Thank you. If that's all right, Chair.
No, certainly, Councillor Eburn, you had the main thrust of it. The award will be to anybody who has a residual liability. For those who have a liability over and above £50, it will be £50. For those who have a liability left after the award of any reliefs and discounts and their council tax reduction, we will pay up to £50, bringing their liability to pay down to zero. In the same way that those who have passport benefits, who are already receiving 100% benefit, some of the additional residents who have residual liabilities, some of them will only be paying £1 a week. They won't have to pay council tax either. That's the way the scheme would work.
Thank you. Any further questions? No? As the questions have finished, we will now move to the debate. Councillors will be allowed to speak once and for 3 minutes, and this will be timed. Who would like to start the debate? Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Chair. I totally will be supporting this document and the recommendations, but I would just like to make the point I'd just like a little bit more information. For instance, under section 310 on page 272, we talk about this will cost £125,000 from the Thriving Communities budget, but we're not told what the impact on that Thriving Communities budget is. Will it be overspent for this financial year, or will something else have to suffer that would have been funded by it? So I'd just like to, in future, ask situations like this to be addressed, that we're given the impact of the decision on the budget that's already been set, and here we have no information on that impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Scarf.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as I said earlier, I declared an interest because I'm a trustee of the Stowmarket Relief Trust. And I would like to put on record, as a trustee, our thanks to the District Council for the financial support that they've given to us, as mentioned in 1.3, because I think it is a case of, we've heard Councillor Eburn talking about working in partnership. It's citizens' advice, it's local charities, it's local welfare organisations, and this is part of an overall picture. I will certainly be supporting this initiative because I think it's a very innovative initiative, and I know that the Council will keep a watchful eye on the implications from central government funding, whether it continues or not, or whether it's called something else, or whether it doesn't continue at all. But I can't imagine that central government won't continue something, and whether it's called the same thing or not, they may invent a new name for it, and I would hope that they do, because I think we are in danger of some of our residents still dropping off the edge of that cliff. And I think those of us that represent, whether it's town or village areas, all know residents who are really struggling to actually survive, to pay the bills. Cost of living is an issue that is certainly not going to go away. Thankfully, inflation is less than it was, but I think those who are struggling are still actually struggling.
Thank you, Councillor Scarf. Would anybody else like to make comment or debate? No? Councillor Caston.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm all for option 1 on this. I think option 2 and option 3 do put more strain on everything. It seems to me that an additional 40,000 isn't a huge amount of money, considering we're paying it back to ourselves pretty much. And when people go into crisis, we can spend 40,000 very quickly. The only thing that I can't quite get my head around, and I might have this wrong, is that if at this moment you underpaid by £50, if this is in the public domain, this meeting, is it good advice to tell people that meet this criteria not to pay £50 of their bill because they'll get it back? I don't know whether it works like that, but I'm struggling to sort of get my head round that side of things. But no, it's a very small amount of money. I don't know if it's enough to prevent crisis, but people are struggling out there, so I will be supporting option 1.
Thank you, Councillor Caston. Councillor Eburn, would you like to come back to that point? No? Okay, okay, I'm just summing up. Any other comments? Okay, thank you. Councillor Eburn, would you like to add anything else?
Thank you, Chair. Just to say this, on the comments about the council tax support scheme, this particular new scheme is automatic. So if you are in receipt of the council tax reduction scheme and you've got a liability, that's it. So for anybody else, it's not going to have an effect. So it's only for that particular group of people, as the paper says in 4.14 and so on. So it's a very, very specifically targeted at those individual households. But just in terms of comments, obviously the central government funding is being removed at the end of September. So I'm not that confident that a new government will suddenly find a whole load of money and say we're going to keep that funding in place, or even despite the fact that they have said that they are going to they put local government back in the title of one of their ministerial roles, whether they will provide extra support to both county and district councils in this type of area. So I think that at the moment we're left to deal with these things on our own, and I'm really confident that what we've got in place today will help to do that. Plus, it would also reinforce our working with our partners in the different sectors to ensure that those that are the most vulnerable get the support they need. And I think that is the primary point of this paper, is being able to do that. So I'd urge all members to vote in favour of this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for summarising, Councillor Eburn. I would now ask the lead officer for members and systems to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Thank you, Chair. That vote is 28 votes for and 2 abstentions.
Thank you, that is carried. We will now move on to item 17, Stowmarket Town Centre Gateway Fund. I would like to invite Councillor Winch to introduce paper MC 2414 and to move the recommendation in this report.
Okay, what I'd like to do is try and address 2 questions. What are we proposing and how we're going to go about it? So we all want to see Stowmarket being a thriving town with a thriving town centre and a great place for people to live in and visit. So this proposal needs to be seen as complementary to other initiatives that are going on in the town. It isn't the answer to everything that's going on in the town. The council has pushed ahead already with a number of initiatives, like the Shelf Project, investing in new sports and leisure facilities, the redevelopment of the former middle school, which will result in 44 affordable homes, and a recent award of significant SIL funding to Suffolk County Council Library Service. But this proposal is specifically designed to stimulate activity in the town centre. So that means things like arts and cultural experiences, tourism, community activities, retail, small business workshops, leisure, food and drink, that type of thing. It's not an exclusive list. We also want to address the issue of empty properties in the town. So the average empty property rate, vacancy rate for the East of England is 12.5%. Stowmarket is below that at 80%, but we have seen a recent rise. We also want to ensure that a significant element of the profits from Gateway 14 are seen to be going into the town. Now, I believe that Gateway 14 will already bring significant benefits to Stowmarket because it's going to create a lot of jobs, a lot of high-skilled jobs, and we've recently been able to get over £16.5 million for the Innovation Centre, and I believe that will be of benefit to the town as well. But this is trying to make a more specific, that's been commercially successful, so let's put something into the town centre. So 2 general things to say about the scheme. One is this idea of additionality. So we want this scheme to bring new things to the town centre. We're not trying to encourage sort of competition with existing things. And the second thing is that value for money is very important. This isn't being developed primarily for commercial reasons, but for wider social and economic reasons. But we have to make sure effective use of public funds and to make sure we have best and fair value. So that is a key aspect. And that's why we're putting in a structured framework for initiatives to be assessed. So what are we doing? So we're going to take £1.5 million from the Gateway Dividend Fund and create a new fund called the Stowmarket Town Centre Gateway Fund. And that fund's going to be in 2 parts. So part A is like the property side. And what we're looking at here is bringing in underutilised or empty properties into use. So that would be in 3 ways. So either the council could buy a property, it could rent the property for a period of time, or it could refurbish a property or parts of a property. So it's to try and bring properties into use. And the sorts of things that we'd be looking at for assessing this is, are they in the right target area? Are they vacant or about to be vacant? Are the conditions something that can be improved? Is it fair market value? And then there's a series of due diligence checks. So through a structured process. So that's the property side. The other side is finding occupiers who want to locate in the town centre. So these will be small businesses, pop-ups, other new ventures who are looking to try and locate, but either but don't really know how to go about this. So again, we'll be looking at those, the occupiers will be asked to come forward, and there'll be criteria that they go through. So is it additionality to the town centre, or the minimum operating hours that they're offering, minimum occupancy? We're not doing this for national retailers, so it's really aimed at small businesses. Are they financially viable, and what's the evidence of benefits? So what will happen is that an occupier would express an interest, and then the council would help in 3 ways. So finding town centre accommodation, primarily that comes out of the first part of the scheme, providing signposting and other grant support that might be available to an occupier, and then the council actually helping with practical things for the organisation that's come forward. So the idea is that all the applicants on both sides of this scheme will be processed by the council via a structured process, and then they will be reviewed by a stakeholder panel. And that stakeholder panel will represent the residents of Stowmarket. So that will be a combination of district councillors, town councillors, maybe other independent people who know Stowmarket well. This is an important aspect of the scheme from my point of view, because we want Stowmarket to be the decider in this scheme. A couple of questions that have come up. Why is the scheme 1.5 million? Why isn't it 750,000 or 3 million? We wanted it to be a sufficient size so that we could make an impact, but we obviously want to review the effectiveness of this scheme as we go along. So that's sort of why we pitched it at that level. There's 2 quite different sides to this scheme. Should there be a budget for one side and a budget for the other, it would be a bit artificial for us to do that. So we've tried to make this as flexible as possible. Another background thing that's, to me, quite important in the medium term, and that is, it was mentioned in the King's speech, but the previous government were also looking at this, and that is the expectation is that there will be greater powers for local authorities to intervene with empty properties in town centres, either with a right to buy or with an automatic ability to force a rent of the property. Whether we actually do that or not, but it will create a new dynamic in terms of the negotiation, because you're not going to be able to just sit on an empty property, which you can at the moment. The timetable for this is to launch as soon as possible, assuming we get council approval, with the first applications in the September timeframe. So just a very quick summary. It's part of a number of initiatives designed to try and develop the town of Stowmarket. It's designed specifically to stimulate new activity in the town centre, gives a structured framework whereby new initiatives can be judged, and applications will go to a stakeholder group representing the town. Finally, I'd just like to thank Emily Atack and her team for getting this on the blocks quite quickly, and we're really enthusiastic about what we can do with the scheme. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Winch. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Lay.
Thank you, Chair. Very happy to second this and just say a few words. As a Stowmarket councillor, but most importantly as a Stowmarket resident, I use the town centre every day, and it's hard not to notice the empty properties and increasingly ageing shop fronts. Encouragingly, as highlighted by Councillor Winch, the vacancy rates in Stowmarket are 4.5% lower than other areas in the east of England, and it's for this reason that I believe this is the ideal time for us to act. This is an incredibly promising initiative that aims to revitalise the town centre of Stowmarket and bring about some positive changes for our community. The positive feedback we've received from local businesses already since the press release last week is a clear indication of their support and enthusiasm for this project. We're confident that the implementation of the Stowmarket Town Centre Gateway Fund we will not only enhance the visual appeal of the town that I proudly call home, but also complement and support the long-standing businesses and market traders that have been integral parts of our community for many years. The ultimate goal is to bring tangible benefits to the residents of Stowmarket through the development of Gateway 14. We recognise the importance of creating a town centre that caters to the needs and expectations of our residents. And this is why we are fully devoted to ensuring that this project adds value to their lives in a meaningful way. Personally, I'm eagerly looking forward to witnessing the positive impacts that this project will bring upon our town centre, and I would also like to second Councillor Winch and take the opportunity to thank all of the officers that have been involved in bringing this forward. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lay. We will now move to questions. Councillors can ask as many questions as they wish. They must be relevant to the subject under discussion and they must be a question. Who would like to start? Councillor Matheson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just one nice, easy little question. Have we looked specifically at what are called meanwhile uses for vacant properties? There is a foundation established to help with that particular idea. Thank you.
I don't know if we've looked specifically, but the important point to make is that we haven't made a very, very narrow judgment on what could be done here. So I think we're open-minded as to what might work.
Thank you. Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this initiative and I will be supporting it, but I'd just like to make one point before I ask my question is the risk assessment to me doesn't cover the danger that this could, if not managed properly, drive a race to the bottom. You make the point it's additionality you're looking for, but their businesses will be getting subsidised rent to run their business to get initiative. Other areas of the town may not be able to compete. Or could naturally go out of business to then come back in to try and get into the scheme. So there is a possibility there's dangers in my mind that this could be a race to the bottom if it's not managed very carefully. And that leads to my question, how much of this £1.5 million to take all the safeguards you want to put in and are necessary is going to be lost in administration?
Thank you. Councillor Winch.
Two bits to this. I think the race to the bottom I don't think will happen because I think there's a clear process here and there's a stakeholder panel. The aim isn't to try, we'll be very, very careful about introducing direct competition, but I take your point. In terms of administration, it's going to be covered via the existing officer team. So I don't expect a huge proportion of this fund to go on administration. I don't know whether you want to comment on that.
Thank you. No, I don't think we're anticipating any additional administration costs. There will be some costs of marketing this scheme because obviously we want to make sure that the existence of this scheme is well known across our district. So there will be some costs in that regard, but the majority of the 1.5 million needs to go to improving Stowmarket High Street and helping it to thrive.
Thank you, Emily. Any other questions? Councillor Lawrence.
If I may just come back on that, to me, reading the report, there will be significant administration costs because you'll need to be surveying the properties to make sure that you don't fall foul of taking on a property that's falling to pieces and then have to be responsible for the repairs to that to the landlord. So there will be, other than just officer costs.
Yeah, okay, fair point. So there were each, especially on the building side, each building will require cost for assessment, but there's not going to be hundreds of buildings that are being looked at, and there will be an initial view on how feasible that is before putting in a certain amount of cost. I think you end up in this position, this is how I see it. If you leave everything just to the market, it's not going to happen. So you have to intervene sometimes. As soon as you intervene, you run a risk of wasting public money or having too much administration. So you have to be very, very careful about how you manage this kind of process. So we are aware of those kinds of issues and you're right to raise them.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Patchett.
Thank you, Chair. Just wondered if you could explain to members the geographical constraints of where this sort of scheme starts and ends. Is it just limited to the exact high street? Because there are sort of clusters of other shops that are in need. So I'm thinking Wosley Road in Chiltern, sort of known as Top Shops, that place needs bins and extra parking spaces. Is this scheme allowed to extend out that far?
You've got a couple of things here. This is called the Stowmarket Town Centre Gateway Fund, not High Street. So it's much more flexible than High Street. Things like bins and parking spaces are outside of this scheme. This is about bringing occupiers into the town centre. It doesn't mean that isn't an important issue, but it needs to be addressed through something else. Yeah, this is specifically about the list that I read out, so arts, cultural experiences, tourism, community activities in the town centre. What exactly is the town centre? I think there's an initial view, but there might be something that was just outside that was felt to be really good. So the idea is to keep it reasonably flexible, but it's focused on the town centre in general terms.
Councillor Walters.
Thank you, Chair. Another Stowmarket resident of over 30 years and business owner. I'm thoroughly looking forward to this happening. My question is around perception of Stowmarket residents and people outside Stowmarket. And I think, again, anyone that knows me will know communications runs through me. Doesn't matter what we say and how we say it, there will be people out there that will be shooting us down in flames and say, watch them waste the money. So my question is to, whether it's to Councillor Winch or to officers, what is the plan to counteract the negativity that is already starting on social media and will continue, because we need to demonstrate straight away and continue to demonstrate that we're not wasting money. So what's the comms plan, or has it not been yet been written?
Councillor Winch.
Okay, I'll start answering and then I will ask for some assistance. But I think it's important to underline that with the scheme, nothing happens unless suitable properties or occupiers are found. So it's sort of like, unless we find that, which we're confident we will do, and that's what creates the success of this scheme, because then you're bringing things that people can recognise that add value. I wasn't aware that there is a big concern about us wasting money on the scheme for that reason, because we're not spending money speculatively, we're waiting until we find the right thing. But I don't know if you want to add to that.
Emily Atack, would you like to answer?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think in terms of countering negativity, in terms of this scheme, it's really the kind of proof of the pudding is in the eating. So what we're wanting to see is a town centre that is really thriving, and that will really be the best way of countering any negativity. In terms of ensuring that this scheme does thrive, we are counting on all of you councillors in the room to help promote this scheme, to make sure that potential occupiers do come forward, that we identify potential properties and opportunities. And I think the more that officers and councillors can work together to promote this scheme, the more able we will be to counter any negativity as a consequence of this being brought forward.
Thank you. Councillor Walters, you wanted to come back?
Yes, thanks. No, I fully appreciate that. So just to counteract what you thought I said in terms of negativity, it's the continual barrage of negativity that you get from certain people on social media. So I'm just highlighting that. I fully accept that we are responsible for that money. But it's just about being aware that all of us is responsible for talking up Stowmarket, and we all play a part in that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chair. I'm also a resident of Stowmarket of a very, very long time. I was just thinking about properties. Obviously, if you're looking at the town centre, there are a lot of properties that are residential, that are empty. There are lots of flats as well that are empty, that actually expand sort of beyond that initial sort of high street. Just sort of think about change of use, and if people are starting to think, well, actually, I could set up my business from there, but they're sort of empty and vacant, but they're currently as a house, as a flat. Is that all within the scheme? Is that sort of considered?
I'm not sure we've talked about that specifically. I think that when you go through a process, you'll end up with what kind of value is that in trying to put cost into changing that. And I think that would lead you down a certain route. That sounds like a relatively high cost thing to be doing. It would be my gut reaction. But.
Thank you. Councillor Rowe.
Well, seen over the last 13 years that I've lived in Stowmarket how much difference that public funding can make to Stowmarket with things like the Mix, the Regal, the John Peel Centre, Food Museum. It's kind of changed quite a lot since I've been there for the better, and there's kind of quite a lot of opportunity for this. A question I have is, have we kind of learned from where things haven't necessarily worked as smoothly, where we've been funding things, and where like there's kind of been agreements which have like not worked in a timely manner, which then has caused kind of issues for when we found like organisations which want to take advantage of our opportunities.
I guess that's what I think the importance of the stakeholder panel is in this process, that the officers are going to assess this through a structured process. Then it's going to go to a group of people who really know about Stowmarket and are committed to Stowmarket and are residents of Stowmarket, and they will make that assessment, and will be looking out for things like that.
Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. Reading through this report, I had a number of questions, which I think actually Councillor Winch part answered in his introduction, but perhaps if you give more details. On page 6, Appendix A, it says that the decisions of spending will require recommendations to a stakeholder panel. And within the report, paragraph 9.1 refers to a stakeholder board of town representatives. But nowhere within the report can I see any further details of this panel or board. So may we have some more details of this seemingly secret body? The questions, I think, are: how will its members be chosen? Who will be on it? What qualifications do they need to enable them to judge the merits of the projects? How will this panel board report back to its funder, the council? What are the governance arrangements and transparency of the decision-making process? And how will we as members assess its performance?
So these are all good questions, and the direct answer is some of that detail hasn't been nailed down yet. It was establishing the principle here. What we do know is it will be a mixture of town councillors and some district councillors, and then other people as is seen to be appropriate. And there will be guidelines on how that will work in relation to officers. In terms of us being able to assess that, we will be bringing back the progress of this scheme at regular intervals and reporting on it. Some of that detail hasn't been quite pinned down yet.
Thank you. Councillor Rowe.
Further to my question, it was more about the smooth running of like the due diligence and the getting agreements in place that I was talking about. So once there's been panel agrees, it's the more where we kind of are satisfied that with the organisation applying, and kind of what the bureaucracy of it, which there needs to be a certain amount of, but just how we can help that be smoother than sometimes it has been in the past.
I think you're suggesting you're slightly sceptical on whether we can process things in a timely manner, which I think is a valid concern. But I think we're going round in a little bit of a circle here, I think, because the proof of the pudding is in the eating on a lot of these questions. That's number one. And the second thing is the scheme isn't pinned down in absolute detail because it needs to be refined as we go through this process. Once we've done that, I believe we will then have a structure that could be applied to other towns in the district or for Baber. So, but by going through this, we'll have a much clearer view on exactly how it can work.
Thank you, Councillor. I believe we've come to the end of questions. We will now go into debate. Did you want to ask a quick question, Councillor?
Debate, yeah.
Oh, debates, yeah. Okay. Councillors will be allowed to speak once for 3 minutes only, and this will be timed. Councillor Scarf.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry for the confusion there. Well, as a Stowmarket member, I certainly welcome this initiative. I think it's certainly overdue. I was a member of the previous Vision Board, Stowmarket Vision Board, and we talked about pop-up shops. We talked about buying properties, we talked about investing in the town. That was for 4 years, and we achieved absolutely nothing, because nothing came from this council to support an initiative of this type. So I am absolutely delighted that this initiative has come forward, because now is our chance to actually make a really positive difference to the town that I love and I live in. Referring to Councillor Lay's point, he said about the benefits for Stowmarket residents, but it goes much wider than that, because Stowmarket is the core market town in our district, but within 10 minutes is probably half of our population. And they all use Stowmarket as well. They come in to do their shopping, they come in to go to the market, etc. So the benefit is district-wide, not just for Stowmarket residents. The dividend, however, I would like to really make a plea, because I think some other members will probably do exactly the same thing. I do recognise that this is an initiative that is targeted towards Stowmarket, but that does have the wider benefits. But I do think that the Gateway 14 dividend benefit, obviously, is for the benefit of all Mid-Suffolk residents. And I would like to see this, I see this really as a pilot scheme, and that in the future we can look to some of the larger towns and even the larger villages in the district and see whether it would be appropriate for us to buy maybe a redundant building or a closed shop or whatever, and see if there is a use that we can have, put that forward to. So this really is a pilot scheme, and it's not a case of forgetting the wider district. I always make a plea for the wider district. Everyone says everything happens in Stowmarket. The sports funding that's going to happen in Stowmarket. Well, it's bound to, isn't it? Because Stowmarket is where you're going to put that facility, because it's allied to other facilities that already exist. So over the years I've been a district councillor, and it goes back 25 years until the first time that I joined. There was always that sort of rural versus urban aspect to it, and it didn't matter which party ran the council, it was the same always. But the benefits, I think, of this scheme will be much wider, and I just hope that this is a pilot that we can actually adopt in a different scale, in a different process maybe, but something allied to that in the future to benefit the other parts of the district, because there are other towns. Needham Market is just literally down the road and probably has some of the same issues that Stowmarket has, and we might be able to intervene there. Some of the larger villages that have seen huge development but actually have got empty shops.
Councillor Scarf, could you wrap up, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Warboys?
I think Councillor Scarf's beat me to the draw with his comments there. I do support this proposal. I think I welcome the principle that it represents, that the council is working with ambition and with imagination. The council, and by the council I mean the officers as well as the members, and they are working to ensure that developments do bring positive actions to communities that host them. Gislingham is in my ward at some distance from Stowmarket, but I know the residents there really thoroughly enjoy their twice-weekly bus to Stowmarket, and I look forward to improvements in rural transport to ensure residents across Mid-Suffolk District Council will benefit. I do think the principle publicly across the district should be recognised, that communities do benefit from developments, and that we as a council do actually ensure that will happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Warboys. Councillor Caston.
Thank you very much. Do I think it's a good idea to spend 1.5 million in Stowmarket? Yes, I do. But I find this a little bit build it and they will come. I know we've got a 500-page document report, but this is 6 pages of font 35 writing to do all this, and I've got so many questions. I'm sure you've thought about this, but I would like it before, I would like to see that kind of thing, like dealing with this kind of money. Like, I think we should have an evidence base for the demand. I'm sure the demand's there, but I think we need to show an evidence base. Does it sufficiently incentivise landlords to bring properties back into use? It's not covered. How do we watch out for misallocations of funds in this? We've got to be really careful. This is 1.5 million of our money going into this. And how are we going to monitor to make sure it's working, make sure it's doing the right thing? It's none of that's covered. And will we create a business model for some companies that depends on grants? Because we don't want that. They've got to stand on their own 2 feet. All that we need to look into. I think Councillor Lawrence has made some really good points. We've got to think about competition. We can't damage other businesses. I know it does cover that in the report, but a sentence, how are we going to do that? That's a tough thing to do, to make sure we don't damage businesses not getting the report. And how do we take, Councillor Walters, how do we take the public with us on this? I'm sure you've got an answer to a lot of these questions, but as a councillor receiving this report, I just find it so small and so build it and they will come. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Caston. Councillor Hicks.
Thanks very much. I'll support this paper, and I absolutely can understand why the administration wants to invest that sort of money into Stowmarket. It is, after all, the largest town in the district. A lot of money's gone into Stowmarket over, we've talked to Councillor Scarf was talking about the sports provision. This is further money, and that's a lot of investment. But I do just want to remind the administration that some of us never go to Stowmarket. We're a long way from Stowmarket. Hoxton, Wellingworth, Bedfield, Monksholm, Horham, Denham and Atherton, where I represent, Stowmarket is a long way away, almost a distant place. Our nearest place is Debenham, Eye and Diss. So we never go to Stowmarket. In fact, if we get a train, we always go to Diss. That's the nearest focal point for us. So, of course, the administration is going to invest in Stowmarket, but please, can we actually have some wider investment? Because there are shops that are struggling to survive or have closed actually outside of Stowmarket that also could do with a similar sort of investment. So I know Councillor Scuff doesn't want me to get into rural versus urban. I'm trying not to, but I would support it. But let's remember there are a lot of people that do not go to Stowmarket ever in our district, and it's a long way for us to get there, and it's not a place we would naturally go to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hicks. Councillor Walters.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, Councillor Hicks, can I suggest that you do encourage people to come to Stowmarket? There is some fantastic entertainment facilities. There's a great food museum. It's well worth a 20-minute, half-an-hour drive. I think you'll find there's some great stuff going on. I remember standing up a year ago, or there and thereabouts, as the new member for Stowmarket Central, St Peter's, and saying the reason I stood was to see improvements in the town and to champion the town. And whilst my question might have appeared negative, it certainly isn't. From my point of view, I think this is the most positive thing that I could be standing here and talking about. And again, to all those wonderful villages that are out and about. I used to play football in Wellingworth. It's not that far. I used to go there on a Sunday morning. It's about a 20-minute drive. It's so I lived in Framlingham. So actually, I kind of get around a little bit, and I suggest members do the same. You're absolutely right, Councillor Caxton. I am concerned about bringing the public with us, but I'll echo Councillor Winch to say that the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and we do need to demonstrate. We've got to just get on and do it. 4 years in the making never happened, so we need to get on and do this. I'm at the heart of it. I want to be in the middle of a town that is thriving, and that success will ripple outwards to those villages so that they will feel that they should come to Stowmarket. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Walters. Councillor Patchett.
Thank you, Chair. I'd definitely like to echo Councillor Scarf's view about the wider impact of Gateway 14 money. It should not just be centred centrally. It should definitely be spread out. Councillor Caston, you said you had lots of questions, but you failed to ask any during the question period. Councillor Hicks, come over to Stowmarket. I'd love to show you around sometime. We'll have a beer. We'll have fun. So, talking about the wider aspects, sort of Stow Thorney is where Gateway 14 sits, where this money is coming from, and I think they are taking all of the negative impacts of Gateway 14. They are getting the increased traffic, the extra pollution, noise pollution, light pollution. So I would like to see that area sort of brought up with some of this money as well, perhaps some trees, which they desperately need at 6%. The committee itself that we're going to form, I think that definitely should be formed of a mixture of town councillors, district councillors, perhaps maybe even we need someone from Emily's sort of commercial department to give advice on what buildings would be suitable, and perhaps even do we look for some residents as co-operative members to go onto this board as well. And I know we're sort of talking about the positive impacts that we want of the town, but also there are some things that I don't want this money spent on. And what I don't want to be doing is subsidising large multinationals and big companies and enabling sort of them to come in. So I don't want to see any subsidisation of that. I want to see this money spent on independents or sort of Suffolk local companies. So that's where I want to sort of see this money go. And also, I don't really want to see a portfolio of sort of grade 2 derelict listed buildings, all the waifs and strays in town, because these buildings come with lots of expenditure and costs. So I think we need to be very careful on the buildings we have. Don't want this big sort of portfolio of buildings that need huge expenditure on. I want to see sort of more vibrant buildings, younger buildings, definitely ones with sort of better EPCs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patchett. I'm minded that we're about 15 minutes away from the 3-hour cut-off, so we're going to need to have a vote to extend the meeting beyond 8:30. Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Carter? Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Mellon? We'll do this by show of hands. All those in favour? Thank you. It is carried. Okay. Can I remind councillors to keep their points as concise as they possibly can, please, and avoid cross-chamber disputes. Councillor Carter.
Yes, I will most certainly be supporting this. As my predecessor, Stowmarket Town Mayor, would say, Stowmarket is the centre of the universe. I'm not sure how astrologically speaking accurate this is, but I would say we are certainly the largest market town, and I see this as a predecessor. I see this as a starting point of what can be done, what we can do here, should then be broadened out in future years of other communities around the area. I do support as well how this is going to be working together. We can use this as a platform for actually how we should work together in other communities. Having it not just of district councillors, but including the town councillors and including residents or locals to Stowmarket, it shows a broadened, joined up thinking, and not just of do as we say or implementing on Stowmarket, but actually working and actually to set an example of how we can actually work together. I certainly as well support, as Councillor Patchett was saying, that we should be working with predominantly the smaller local businesses and actually not supporting it to actually bring in larger ones, whilst it may actually bring some more money into a town, is for supporting the local, the community, is actually allowing it to actually grow and stretch and actually bring in more money into it that way. So, yeah, I'm certainly supporting this. I'm certainly supporting the way it's being thought about, and I can only look forward to the benefits that this will bring and how it will then be implemented further afield. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Councillor Rowe.
Yeah, I fully support this. As I said, from what I've previously seen and how Stowmarket has been improved, and also because of having seen kind of over the last few years lots of consultations but not anything kind of happening out of them. So this feels like a much more productive way to go forward, and kind of I also look forward to how this will kind of help people like in the surrounding area, like surrounding villages and stuff, because as someone who kind of works outside of Stowmarket and travels to a cultural venue in a like about 4 villages away, I kind of know that it's not as simple as like if you create an opportunity in Stowmarket, it's only for people in Stowmarket. There's a wider element to it, and also with the idea of competition, if you have a thriving cultural scene, then it's things that you can get synergy as well. So it can be we can provide wider benefits to other organisations already there, rather than just look at it from a competition point of view. So yeah, I fully support it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Baker.
Thank you. I just wanted to talk about timescales, really. We're at the end of July, beginning of September, sort of looking to consider applications. We're just thinking about, we've got, I'm assuming this year, yeah. But what I was just thinking about is, could we get together some kind of a schedule? So the current sort of lead members for this initiative, the officers, get some kind of a schedule together to look at the questions and some of the things that have come forward today, which are all very important, that the governance, that the framework, that the rules around it, anybody who's the specialists that are going to be involved, that we get a schedule together that we can actually work through all of this, and that the documents can be ready to go, so that come September we don't have still some of these questions sort of unanswered, and then the applications, and then the marketing and the launch can happen all quite succinctly. So that's just my thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stringer.
Thank you. I'll try and be brief. I wasn't going to speak on this, but I know what it's like to sit on that side of the chamber for 20 years, and you have things come forward, and it's really your job to try and pick holes in it. And this one must be really difficult, and I think the questions we've had from that side are proving that. We do not want to hidebound this in millions of bits of bureaucracy and penny pick and pinch at all of this. Stowmarket houses Gateway 14. Councillor Patchett, if you're worried about your tree cover, there's 15,000 new trees down there. That's improved the tree cover already from our indicators earlier, because it was an arable field, or several arable fields. Anyway, Gateway 14 is producing quite a lot of income into the council, and it's what we do with that income that we're discussing tonight, part of that income we're discussing tonight. I'm really proud that we're actually putting a framework. I'd like it to be relatively loose, frankly, because we don't know what's out there. We don't know what that town needs, because what we're looking for is additionality. We're not about hunting a perfect shop that's a really good commercial thing to do, and no, we don't want to touch one of those. The commercial market will sort that out. We need to look at those other buildings that the commercial market might not take, so we can put something interesting in there that the commercial market wouldn't normally do. It might be a listed building that's absolutely knackered, sorry to use a horrible term, that needs masses of investment spent on it. There was one of those in Sudbury. Someone spent 15 million quid on it. You'll be having a heart attack. It's called Gainsborough House. It's one of the jewels in Suffolk's crown. If someone hadn't have had the initiative to go, we're going to invest in that and put pride back into that town, that never would have happened. How do we not know we've not got one of those in Stowmarket? It's that we want this fund to try and hunt out. It's to make sure that people come all the way from Debenham to come to Stowmarket. Frankly, it's got your nearest cinema. And we actually ought to be proud of what we've got in the town. We've got a publicly owned cinema. I'd really like to put a sign on that cinema that's about 80 feet wide that says, proud to be publicly owned. Perhaps it would stop some of the people that do moan, and having lived around Stowmarket all my life, moaning is a prerequisite of daily life. That is going to happen no matter what. But it's trying to use that money in a way that when people say, what's Gateway 14 ever done for us, we can say, it produced that jewel and set all those other jewels running to investment in Mid-Suffolk. I would certainly be supporting this, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stringer. Councillor Winch, do you have anything to add?
I can't do it as colourfully as Andrew has done, but I just want to cover off some of the things that have been said. So this rural ward thing, I'm very aware of this. I'm representative of a ward, a very rural ward, right on the edge of the territory. The residents in my ward go to Bury St Edmunds, and they're not going to come to Stowmarket sometimes, but they might do if we can develop the town centre. But because of that, because a lot of residents in my ward go to Bury St Edmunds, there's not a reason why we shouldn't be doing something in Stowmarket. I think that debate is for another day. I think Councillor Scarf talked about a pilot, and I think that's a fair judgment. We wanted to move away from the 4 or 5 year detailed analysis of everything that could possibly move, and we never end up doing anything. I think we should be thinking of this as a matching process, not a long-term subsidy process. So the idea is to find people who want to locate in the town centre. They need to be financially viable. We're not planning to subsidise them for the rest of their lives. And the point about governance and timescales, well made. We will be coming back with details on this in the near future. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Winch. I will now ask the Lead Officer for Members and Systems to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. That is 30 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you very much. That is carried. We still have a few items of business to get through on the agenda. I would like to propose a very brief break, limited to 5 minutes, if the Chamber is minded to do so. Can I have a quick show of hands just to indicate who would like to have a break? Okay, I think we're going to do that then. Okay, please be back here in 5 minutes sharp. Thank you. Okay, we'll continue the meeting. We're now on to item 18, MC 2415, process for adoption of a local listed building consent order for works to windows and a local development order for solar PV on outbuildings. I would like to invite Councillor Stringer to introduce the paper and to move the recommendation in the report. Councillor Stringer.
Thank you, Chairman. On page 303, I'd like to move the recommendations under 3, A, B and C, but I wish to amend B. The first sentence should read, delegate authority to the Chief Planning Officer to draft a local development order in relation to the installation of solar PV and other renewable technologies to listed and unlisted buildings. I believe that's the amendment that I need to make, because obviously it's not very helpful if you're trying to get renewable technology on a listed building if you haven't listed it in the recommendation. Right, I've done that bit. I'd like to say a few thank yous right at the beginning. I'd like to thank the officers for all their diligence and work on this. I think we could have ended up with what started as a bit of an odd idea that could actually be something quite brilliant and something that could be of some regional, if not national, significance. But we're not quite there yet. We need to get this approved and get all the rest of the work done on it. Mid-Suffolk has around about 3,500 listed buildings in it. 3,000 of those are grade 2. I think we've got a few owners in the audience tonight. Twice the amount of listed buildings, twice the amount of listed buildings than in York, I think. And between us and Baber, 2,000 more than Bath. I mean, it's remarkable how many listed buildings we've got. And often I speak to people that have got listed buildings, not least that we've been trying to change some of what's going on within the Heritage Service, but also if you try and want to talk to people about being carbon neutral and all that, most people will say to you, I can't do any of that, I've got a listed building. It's almost an opt-out from doing anything that conserves energy or does anything in that space, where most modern homes are now moving in that direction. We are selling homes in Mid-Suffolk at the moment. There are homes for sale in your patch, Mr. Caston, where you can buy a new home and it will not have an energy bill for a decade. That will be one of the greatest engines for people to want to make their homes more energy efficient and invest in renewable technologies. And why should those in a heritage building be precluded from a future? Because someone that owns a heritage building, they normally love the building, they normally have a huge commitment to that building, and they certainly have a financial commitment to that building, because they're not normally inexpensive to do up. And equally, they're often very, very expensive to run, so why shouldn't these people have a part of that future? So this document allows us to then open up that proper conversation and change the nature of the conversation to then be able to signpost people into, you can do something about your building, and here are some of the things you can do without going through masses and masses of paperwork and consultations and et cetera, et cetera. Here is a list of things that you can do. What's really interesting is how many people responded to this consultation. 240 odd. One of them was from Historic England, and that one was a brilliant response. And Historic England are really interested in working with us to make this the best local development order we can, so that we not only do justice to those people, those heritage buildings, and also help those people that own those buildings to have a slightly more sustainable future financially, because those people do have a huge burden, and literally the history of those buildings is in their hands. So move approval on the document with that amendment, Chair, and I look for a second.
Thank you, Councillor Stringer. Before we proceed, could I ask you to clarify whether we would also need to amend recommendation C to delegate authority to the Chief Planning Officer to at least annually review potential opportunities for new renewable energy technologies which might be made the subject of a potential local development order or a potential listed, and here it is, unlisted building consent order in consultation with the Cabinet member. Is that correct?
I haven't got, yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Baker.
I'll second. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to questions. Councillors can ask as many questions as they wish. However, the questions must be relevant to the subject under discussion, and it must be a question. Would anybody like to ask a question? Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. As a representative of Debenham Ward, I very much welcome this progress. I think for most residents, this will be very welcome. Although those in grade 2 star buildings will be asking me particular reference to 1.6 on page 302. And I would like to ask the question, when will the free advice on energy efficiency improvements would be available?
Thank you. I might defer to Stephen Stroud at this point, but I think it is our wish to do it as soon as possible. But perhaps, Stephen, you could elaborate.
Of course, thank you. Yes, it would be our intention to do that as soon as possible. Obviously, that's a distinct initiative from the two orders which are running along a very prescribed legal process. The proposal in respect of free pre-application advice on energy matters is part of a broader package of improvements that we're looking to make, and I would anticipate that that will be in place by the autumn.
Thank you. Councillor Warboys.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, a brief question. Just what sort of time scale are we looking at for this proposal?
I'll say as soon as possible, and I'll defer to Stephen Stroud.
Yes, so as I just mentioned, the sort of the production and adoption of a consent or development order runs along a prescribed legal process. So it is quite chunky and it will take time. We've got to work in dialogue with Historic England, and any proposed order will be subject to further consultation. That all being said, where officers have already met Historic England and they've expressed support to the principle of both of the orders that are before you this evening, I'm confident that we can at least get to consultation by the autumn as well, actually. So quite a lot of improvements in the near future, actually.
Thank you. Councillor Winch.
Solar panel systems now are increasingly getting fitted with a battery. Can I ask that the role of the battery will be considered in this? Because the problem normally is it has to be located near the power supply, so right near the property itself.
Thank you for that. Yeah, yes, we are. We are going to be looking at what we can then do with and what will be permitted and not permitted in terms of that. It may not be as close to them, because certainly if I owned a thatched property, I really would worry about nailing a battery to the wall of that. So I think, yeah, we've just got to work with Historic England, look at all that, but look at the most common sense and practical way of doing this. When you look at a historic building, there's normally ranges in different eras of building, and often there'll be a Victorian building where they had a toilet in it and a boiler or what have you. Yeah, we could work with that and work, because in the order it clearly mentions outbuildings, so there's probably scope for that. So I would suggest, yes, batteries are going to be part of that, but the permitted side of that may be just outbuildings or a certain distance away from that listed building. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Chair. As an owner of a Grade 2 listed building in a conservation area, I would support the principle of what these recommendations, but what I would ask is there's a different level of allowance for Grade 2 in a listed conservation area to those not in the conservation. I feel it important that we maintain conservation area status, and not just this. The whole proposal just doesn't run carte blanche over conservation areas, otherwise there's no point in conservation areas. So I would ask that there's some differentiation between Grade 2 in a conservation area and Grade 2 not in a conservation area. Can you assure us of that?
Councillor Stringer.
I probably won't, because it's my assumption that a Grade 2 listed building has similar protection, whether it's in a conservation area or not. And I've got some unlisted buildings in a conservation area that have works done to them permitted that perhaps if it had a grade 2 or grade 2 start, it wouldn't be allowed. But it is not the will of this to threaten conservation areas by allowing certain permitted developments on outlets. Absolutely not. This is not what we're about. And this is certainly, I don't think, Historic England will let us get anywhere near threatening conservation area statuses at all. But I would imagine they would all be looked at literally, yeah, they should all have equal merit, frankly, whether they are in a conservation area or not.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, we will now move to debate. Councillors will be allowed to speak once and for 3 minutes, and this will be timed. Who would like to start the debate? Councillor Hicks.
I think credit where credit's due. This is really, really good news. And credit to Councillor Stringer and to your colleague over in Baber for bringing this forward and to the officer team. This has been something that's been discussed, has always been really difficult to achieve. And I know myself I just wanted to put the double glazing that is approved in Norwich City in their listed buildings into my old place, and they said no. So it's a common sense approach. We need to make our houses fit for purpose. We all want to do things for the environment, and whether it's windows, whether it's panels or other technologies, this gives a whole new opportunity to people out there that can't participate and actually are paying for it. So this is a really good long-term solution. Well done, and I absolutely will be supporting it.
Fantastic. Would anybody else like to comment? Councillor Penny.
I'd just like to add to Councillor Hicks's enthusiasm and say...
Could you stand up, please, Councillor Penny? Thank you.
Apologies. It's all right now. I'd just like to echo Councillor Hicks's words. I've been frequently asked by listed building owners who are concerned about the climate emergency and really, really do want to do their bit, but feel overwhelmed with knowing what to do and are all very much looking forward to the forthcoming guidance. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Stringer, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, very, very briefly. Thank you, Councillor Hicks. I'll send someone round to measure up the windows tomorrow, if you like. In fact, I've got a cousin that has got a wood workshop in Backton, so I need to be sharing it as well. No, I think, thank you for the praise. It was triggered by one particular move, but we need to change that conversation because those with listed buildings need to be part of that conversation, and we need to make every single step in making those heritage buildings comfortable to live in and financially sustainable as well as environmentally sustainable in the future. We need to almost show a path and light a way to that and make the right thing to do the easiest thing to do. And I think at times that has been a huge frustration. And I think what we need to make sure is that these orders are approved, and I hope they are, that we strike a careful balance in between allowing that energy efficiency, but not harming the building. But equally, we know we've got a big mountain of to climb in terms of energy efficiency. So it's about striking that balance. And the work we've done so far, and again, I'll thank the officers for their hard work on this. I really think we could be on the brink of something really, really interesting. And then Councillor Hicks might have more spare money if he's not spending it on heating, and he might be able to visit Stowmarket. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much, Councillor Stringer. I will now ask the lead officer for members and systems to conduct the electronic votes.
Thank you, members. That vote is now in progress. That is 29 votes for, so that's unanimous.
Thank you, that is carried. Item 19, MC 2416, decisions taken by the Chief Executive under delegated powers in accordance with Part 2 of the Constitution. I would like to invite the Chief Executive to introduce this report.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. You'll be pleased to know I'm going to be extremely brief. There are 3 matters where I took a decision outside of the normal procedures on the basis that we were in multiple election periods. Those were to enable us to be able to consult on the supplementary planning documents. The report is simply for noting, and I need a councillor to move and second. Thank you.
Councillor Mellon, you're going to propose. Thank you. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Stringer, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions? These will be for clarification purposes only. No? Okay, excellent. So the recommendation is that the Council notes the decision taken under delegated powers by the Chief Executive. Unless members have any questions, I intend to put this straight to the vote. I will now ask the lead officer for members and systems to conduct the electronic vote.
Members, that vote is now in progress. Councillor Carter, would you like to give your vote verbally?
Yes, please. I vote in favour.
Thank you. That will be 28 votes for, Chair, that's carried.
Thank you very much. Move on to item 20, appointment of monitoring officer. I would like to invite the Chief Executive to introduce this report.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I'll be very brief. So as councillors will be aware, Tom Barker was successfully appointed to the role of Chief Operating Officer. When we advertised that post, the intention was that that role would also carry with it the responsibility, the statutory responsibility as monitoring officer. However, that's not something that's within my gift. That's only for you to appoint as full council. And so my request is that you appoint Tom Barker as the monitoring officer. A slight change to the recommendations is that that would take effect at the point in which the current monitoring officer, Jan Robinson, leaves the organisation. So it wouldn't take effect immediately, it would be at the point that she leaves the organisation in the coming month. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Jan Robinson for all her help and advice during her time as monitoring officer and wish her well in her new role when she leaves us in September. Thank you. Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Mellon. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Carter. Does anybody have questions for clarification only? Excellent. I will now ask the lead officer for members and systems to conduct the electronic vote.
That vote is now in progress. Councillor Carter, can I take your vote? Thank you. That's 28 votes for, Chair.
Thank you, that is carried. Item 21, councillor appointments. Appointment of directors to the Board of Mid-Suffolk District Council, Suffolk Holdings Limited. I would like to invite Councillor Mellon to introduce paper MC 2418 and to move the recommendation in the report.
Thank you, Chair. I will be brief too. First, I want to thank Councillor Austin Davis for his input into the Council's companies as a member of the Board of Mid-Suffolk Holdings. Austin, I know that your wide experience of business in various parts of the world has provided a very useful background and context and allowed you to bring a particular perspective to the board, for which we are grateful. And I know that your family demands now mean that you need to step back from that role. So we do need to replace
Councillor Austin Davis on the board, and the recommendation is to approve the appointment of Councillor Teresa Davis as a director. So it's Davis out, Davis in. Again, Teresa brings a wide range of experience in the public sector and in business, including working in the City of London. She brings a forensic eye for detail, and I think she'll be a great addition to the board. And I'm happy to propose her appointment as at recommendation 3.1. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mellon. Do we have any other changes of placings? No? Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Davies. Thank you. I'll now ask the lead officer for members and systems to conduct the electronic vote.
That vote is now in progress. Councillor Elkin, can I take your vote verbally? In favour, thank you. That will be 23 votes for and 4 abstentions.
Thank you, that is carried. Item 11, there are no motions received. Thank you very much for your stamina. It's been a very busy agenda today. No doubt in part due to the pre-election period where we had to cancel a meeting. Please note that the next meeting is on Thursday the 26th of September at 5:30 p.m. I declare this meeting closed at 8:55 p.m.